2022 T20 World Cup.
Hits him hard and high, straight back down the ground for six.
That's an amazing shot.
This is greatness uninhibited from Virat Kohli.
I honestly have no words. I have no idea how that happened.
The T20 World Cup.
Push through the offside for four. What a shot. What a way to win the game. What an inning.
Tip and run on the offside this time, and there's the century for Riley Rasowi. Second century of his career.
What a knock.
Tries again, gives it out to Stoinis. Six more. A towering blow from Marcus Stoinis.
The T20 Cricket World Cup.
Australia versus England.
That doesn't get much bigger than MCG with a full house with a lot on the line.
At some point in this tournament, you're in must-win games. Already a big occasion. It takes on that extra bit now with both teams having lost one game.
Your home of cricket.
ABC
Sport.
The home of cricket.
Welcome to the 2022 T20 Cricket World Cup on the ABC Listen app, ABC Sport Digital, and across the BBC.
Well, good evening, Australia. Good morning to listeners back at home on Test Match Special on the BBC. Welcome to Melbourne for what should be one of the highlights of this T20 World Cup. It's England against Australia, but I'm afraid where rain yet again is set to ruin the occasion. We've had one washout already today. Ireland against Afghanistan was called off actually an hour and 20 minutes before it might have been. In other words, a 5 overs match might have been scheduled. The umpires pulled the plug on that one, and we're waiting anxiously now to see what's going to happen to one of the highlights of this tournament, England-Australia, with everything to play for, and MCG with 60, 70,000 people due to come in. It's a horrible day, and it follows a horrible day yesterday, and indeed the day before that. It's just been a series of, well, weeks for people here in Victoria of rain. There's floods all around the state. And here for the T20 World Cup, it's just amassed over Melbourne and really has barely relented. It's a desperate shame. It's not torrential rain. It's just that really annoying light drizzle that hangs in the air. And a lot of it's fallen on this ground. And I have to be honest with you, the prospects of this match taking place are not good. It has not been written off yet. The umpires came out a few moments ago. Chris Brown of New Zealand, our old friend Joel Wilson from the 2019 Ashes, he's on duty today. They've had a look, and they're going to have another look in an hour's time. But word, certainly from our contacts within the England camp, is that prospects are not good. It's clearly very, very wet indeed. All I can say is, looking to my right, they have these very funky radars over here, rain radars, of mainly blue splodges, and the really angry ones have passed. So they've gone away to the sort of the northeast, really. It's this southwesterly wind that's bringing the showers in. What we have to come is almost sort of white areas, if you like. That means that's the lightest possible indicator of rain that is on the radar. There's one or two blue splodges there as well. But it is clearing. It is clearing. It's just a question of what damage has been done over these last few days. And indeed, at the moment, looking at the covers, continues to be done, albeit by this very light rain. So we've got the sheets on. We've got a super sopper whale chugging up and down relentlessly to the right-hand side of the circle. As I look out here, down at the northern end of the MCG, we've got some stewards looking rather bedraggled and miserable, frankly, with their Pacamax on, waiting for the rain to stop. The ground staff really can't do very much at the moment. There's lots of equipment out there that's largely redundant, including the roller that I suspect has still got to get out there and do its business on the pitch, which we've barely seen all day. The covers were taken off once or twice as we had the false hope of Ireland and Afghanistan getting underway, but it never happened in the end. And in fact, we were hearing from the Ireland captain. He was saying it seems very unlikely that they could play on there today. But we shall wait and see. As I said, the umpires are due to come out in just under an hour from now and have another look. But I can see people coming in. It's this vast stadium that we've talked about, of course, all week. It just sort of swallows up spectators. It's very hard to know how many are here, but they were talking of there being 60, 70,000 here tonight, Friday night in Melbourne, England, Australia. So much at stake as far as this tournament is concerned. I mean, it should have been an absolutely brilliant event following India and Pakistan here the other night, but it's just got a bit of a damp squib feel to it at the moment. We've got the moisture glistening off the plastic seats and so on, and still I can see the splashing of raindrops falling in the gathering puddles. I'm looking at a picture here. I can see David Warner down there. Looks as if he's in a car park, underground car park. I'm not quite sure where he is at the MCG. It's that sort of place, all these sort of cavernous areas where they go. They've got inevitably an Aussie rules football down there that they're kicking around. And Chris Wokes is there having a chat as well. I can see the players just filling time. And it must be quite difficult for them because they must know in the back of their minds that it's unlikely that they're going to play tonight. However, suddenly, at the click of a finger, out they might have to go and play in this really important game. Before I bring Brad Hodge and Ravi Bopara in, just a quick run through of how this group sits as a result of that washout between Ireland and Afghanistan today. But it means that New Zealand remain on top. They've played 2. They've got 3 points. Now, because of the washout, Ireland have nipped up to second place, having beaten England here, of course, the other night, and taking a point for the washout today. So they're currently in second place with 3 points from 3 games. Sri Lanka in third position, having played 2. They've got 2 points. And then come England and Australia. England and Australia both on the same number of points from 2 games. Big difference in the net run rate, though, and that's where Australia could lose out more significantly here today, because that net run rate is significantly the worst in the group, minus 1.555. It sounds a bit technical, but that, of course, is what separates teams when it gets up to the qualification through to the semis. Equal points separated by that net run rate. So they still have a lot of work to do. And Afghanistan, well, they've got 2 points, both through washouts. Both of their games have been washed out. So that's how it sits at the moment. The toss was supposed to have taken place 10 minutes ago, and the game starting in 20 minutes from now. Clearly that's not going to happen, and the umpires are going to come out and have a look. Well, Brad and Ravi's first tour of the BBC, spent much of it knocking around the corridors of the apartment down the road where we're staying. It's pretty bleak, isn't it? Let's be honest. I mean, we normally talk about this back at home if we get a bad spot of weather, but this, I don't know. I mean, come on, you're a local, Brad. You know much more than I, but you can get some rain in Melbourne, but this is just relentless stuff.
Yeah, Aggers and Ravi. Look, I'm not quite sure how to describe it, actually. We were just talking at the back, some local Victorian scorers, and all four weeks of Premier cricket have been washed out.
Yes, that's extraordinary.
And I think
no grade cricket, no club cricket has been played for the last 4 weeks. Yeah.
Not even on the synthetic turf as well. So if you can't get a game on synthetic turf, then you are struggling big style. So it's a real rare occasion for us. Normally we do have 4 seasons in one day, or we've been known to have that.
Yes.
But this has just been a consistent amount of rain for the best part of 2 to 3 weeks, and no one's been able to escape it. We were hoping that it'd blow over in time for this competition, but it hasn't looked that way. And you mentioned such a huge event, such a big build-up to this match, and it just feels like a real punch in the face, doesn't it? It's a dampener. Yep. You can see that the spectators, they're gathering, they're building up and trying to find a seat in the house which is dry, but this place would have been rocking tonight. It's a real shame.
It was so set, wasn't it?
Yep. And what do? Like you just mentioned, that the curators just standing around waiting for an indication about what they can do. But the good news is, you mentioned about the radar, Aggers. Yeah. It does look like the worst of it has passed, and usually you'd sort of think, well, yeah, we're a chance here. The issue is that when you were talking about where the players were, that was just outside the dressing room on the way to the players' lounge where they eat their food. And I spoke to a few of them down there, and they said that it's not actually the weather conditions which will keep them off the field. It's actually the amount of water which is sitting on top of the surface. And from our naked eye, the ground itself looks in amazing condition.
Yes.
But it's actually as you know, everyone talks about a water table over in England. The water table is very important. Well, apparently the water table in all parts of Victoria at the moment is that high that the water's actually got nowhere to go.
Right.
So as good as the drainage is here at the MCG, a lot of it is just sitting just sort of underneath the top of the grass and sitting sort of on the soil, which is a bit problematic. So that's the issue, apparently.
Well, anyone who knows Melbourne, be it at home or here, walking over the Yarra, it's always lovely to do that, isn't it? You walk from south to north or whatever way you go, it's brown.
Yeah,
where
it
that
looks
water
horrible,
is
doesn't it?
brown. Yes, and it's just obviously from the flood waters coming in off the fields, the paddocks as you would call them here. There's soil.
Yeah.
It just looks filthy.
Yeah, and it's even the beaches themselves as well, with the amount of just storm water that's just flooding into the beaches. They got a similar colour as well. So, no, it's not pretty. They probably need to get some dye into that river at the moment. Yeah. Maybe if it was St. Patrick's Day anytime soon, you can whack some green colour in there. It'll look pretty cool. But it's certainly nothing like blue water.
It's not tempting at the moment to go on those little boat cruises up and down the Yarra. That's for sure. We've got 4 Australian players out there kicking their football about, but it's just got this sort of milling around sort of feel to things at the moment, just waiting for something to happen. And you're right. It's a case of how they actually dry the ground up. Ravi, wow, sorry. He's flown out with us.
It's
yeah. I mean, this should have been brilliant, shouldn't it?
it's that early English season feel, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or right down the back end when the rain comes in and affects games. And unfortunately, this has been hard work.
Probably more earlier, because this feels like April. It's actually chilly.
Yeah, it's cold.
It's cold.
Yeah, it is. Like maxing out at 14 degrees.
Yeah,
it's not pleasant at all.
Cold southerly wind. A sort of cut-off idea. If we're working 4 hours on from the possible cut-off of the previous match, and that is the point at which they could possibly get a 5 overs per side in, and that's the minimum that you can have. Is 9:46, I think, local time. So that's 11:46 back at home in the morning, 9:46 in the evening here, and so that is still 3 hours away. So that's the amount of time that they've got to try and clear this up. It's possible that you could get a 5 over thrash in. It's a big game for a 5 over thrash. That really is sort of lottery time, isn't it?
Yeah, no doubt. Look, they probably need about 10 super soppers. There's one mechanical one being operated, and there's 2 hand ones that are rolling around.
Yes. Do you think they do any good? That's a little. It's a sort of based on the sort of thing that you trundle around a supermarket.
Yeah.
And you load up with your shopping. It's not much more to it than that. It's got a little bit of foam attached.
Looks like something I need in my bathroom after the kids have been in the shower for the best part of half an hour.
I think that's exactly the sort of thing that you need. I'm not sure how much good they do. There's a couple of those. I mean, they're just trying to look busy, aren't they? Trying to get something done. But it's a desperate, disappointing. And Ravi, do you get the point about those players? And especially after the Ireland game, where we heard, well, they weren't very on it and they're a bit timid. They've got to be on it. Although this is all going on and there's talk of this match being called off, they could be out there playing this very big game. They've got to keep that focus.
Absolutely, and I think it's all of them as well, because the teams could the dynamic of the team could change if it's a 5 over game. And the England side that played against Ireland, if it's a 20 over game, it might be the same side. But if it's reduced to 5 overs, then you're looking at a different team.
Yes.
In my opinion, then you may see Jordan come in. You may see Tamar Mills come in because it's a 5 over
Real
game.
Death specialists
who are going to bowl 1 over each. So the likes of Adil Rashid might miss out. No spinner. You won't. Is it risky bowling a spinner in a 5 over game? I think so.
Yes.
So the dynamics of the team will change probably for both sides. So the guys who have not been playing, who haven't even looked like playing, are suddenly going to be playing in a 5 over thrash.
Bowling 1 over.
1 over, where the batters are going to be coming at you. And
if I'm retired, Brad, frankly.
No, it's not ideal, is it?
If there was ever you want to bowl,
this is it.
This is it. It's massive,
yeah,
and it's got movement. There's swing. This is the ground you want to come in as a bowler.
1 or 2 of the players are popping up in front of cameras and so on. We'll maybe hear from Moeen Ali in a moment, but from now, Glenn Maxwell has been speaking with Shane Watson, courtesy of the host broadcaster.
Glenn Maxwell, thanks for joining us. How was it like at the other end with Marcus Stoinis going off the other night?
Oh, well, we were sitting on the boundary line watching him go off. It was just incredible. I think we know he has that sort of power, but for him to come out, conditions weren't great for batting. They were obviously seaming around and a bit quick, but the way he started off with that intent was outstanding, and that's what we've always talked about, that middle order trying to have an impact on the game, regardless of how many balls it is, and he certainly did that. The fact he was able to see it through the end and break the fastest 50 record for Australia was awesome to watch, and really got the guys up and about. I think we had a similar thing happen last year where we had a couple of games similar to this, and I suppose it's happened in the second game for us in the tournament is exciting for what's to come.
It's nice to see you get some out of the middle as well, batting very nicely. You happy with how you're hitting at the moment?
Yeah, I feel like I've peaked at the right time. I think before the tournament started, we had 15 games in about 6 weeks, and the guys are pretty tired and cooked after a lot of travel around the world. Really, we had to go to India, up and back in 10 days. But to be able to come into the tournament, hit the ball really well in the practice game, and then start off quite nice in the first 2 games, is exciting.
And how's everyone feeling going into tonight's game if we're able to get on?
Yeah, I think we're all quite galvanised, by the other night, knowing that no matter what situation we find ourselves in, we've got guys that can play the role and do a really good job and win the game from any position. And we probably weren't at our brilliant best in all 3 facets, but we feel like we're getting closer and closer to that perfect game.
And will we be seeing you with the gloves on tonight?
I actually just noticed that no one else was doing any wicket-keeping practice, so I thought, while I was at Kookaburra, I grabbed a set of gloves, and I'm pretty sure Wadey will be fine tonight.
Awesome. All the best for tonight, mate.
Cheers. Thanks very much.
There we go. It's Glenn Maxwell giving a hint about this evening. Not necessarily talking about the conditions, referring to Australia's previous game, but the business about the wicket-keeping gloves is interesting because Matthew Wade has tested positive for COVID. He's the second in the Australian team to do so. Adam Zampa, we expect to play tonight, but he's also had COVID over the last few days or so. But Matthew Wade keeping wicket. Apparently he's arrived at the ground. He's got a big mask on. Whether he keeps wicket in that or not, I don't know, because one or two of the English batsmen might I'm not, you can't really keep wicket socially distanced when you got a spinner bowling. But anyway, we may or may not find out what's happening with that. What we can do, though, is hear from Moeen Ali, and he's been talking to Shane Watson.
Moeen, thanks for joining us. How's the team been after the last game against Ireland?
Obviously very disappointed, with that result didn't go our way, and we didn't play well, and that's the thing that hurt the most, I think. But you still got to get up and try again and come back against a very good side, and it's a massive game. Hopefully get on at some point, but we need those points obviously now.
And what are the specific things that you're looking to rectify after the last game going into tonight's game?
I think just mentally being on it all the way throughout. I think in the field we were poor, and then obviously I think in the first 6 overs, 10 overs probably with the ball we weren't great, and then we actually dragged it back really well. And with the bat as well, we were behind in the first 10 overs, and we tried to obviously get back up, but it was very difficult. They bowled really well, but we didn't deserve to win, and that's what happened in the end.
Yeah, and you're batting very nicely, as you have been for a long time. Is there going to be an opportunity for you to move up the order a little bit more, to a bit more firepower at the top?
I think there's a bit of talk about being a bit more flexible, probably, in the situation, go in a bit earlier if we need to. Me and Livy, actually, Livy's been playing really well as well. So I think if the timing is right, if the spinners are on or whatever, then me and Livy can go up and try and get that run rate up and just be expressive and give ourselves a bit more time and more balls to play.
Yeah, it's a big game tonight for England, and England always find a way to stand up. Obviously, everyone's going to be very pumped for tonight's game.
Yeah, and sometimes it takes a defeat like that to really think about it individually as individual players, to really get yourselves up, and sometimes it is about that one person to stand up, and hopefully we got a lot of players who can win matches, and there'll be 1 or 2 of us stepping up tonight and getting that result.
Awesome, thanks for joining. All the best for tonight.
Let's hope they get the chance. Shane Watson there talking to Moeen Ali. It is still raining, if you're just joining us, be it in the UK or in Australia. And we're here in Melbourne waiting for some news, really, of this terrific prospect of a match between Australia and England, with both teams now having lost a game that they would have chosen not to have done. And so lots at stake. But the rain has been falling, and it is still falling, although not heavily. There was a heavy burst a moment or so ago. That seems to have moved on. But looking at the covers, which is the best way to see, because they haven't actually bothered turning on these enormous floodlights here yet, you can just see actually the rain falling on the white plastic sheets that are laid out, protecting the pitch in front of us. So we'll obviously keep an eye on what's going on there. And the latest news is that the umpires are going to inspect at 7:30 here, so 9:30 in the morning back home at the UK. Still our friend trundles his little white drying device up and down there. He's looking optimistic. He's up and down the sponsor's logo at the moment, and they take some water, don't they? I mean, if you look at he's dried one up. There are two at this end. There's a purple one and a red one to the right, and he's done a pretty good job actually on that left-hand one. But you can see the water actually sitting on the right-hand logo there. So it gives an idea again of the amount of water that's got to be cleared up. But they're not porous. Those mats that are laid out over the grass, and anyway, he's going to go off and do that. So we'll keep an eye on everything that is going on. England, we know, were at least going to be unchanged, and there was some talk about that, Ravi, wasn't there, after Ireland? And what do you do? Do you have that sort of reaction where you make changes and say that that wasn't good enough, and they talked a bit about their attitude and that they weren't fully focused on it and so on? Do you make changes, or do you say, well, these things happen in T20 cricket, we were off the mark on that game, we'll carry on with what we thought was our best team 3 nights ago, and play again? And that's what they've decided to do, unless of course it gets so heavily reduced that they make changes. Are you surprised by that or not?
Well, I'm a fan of the latter, where things like that do happen in T20 cricket, and it's nice to keep continuity in your 11 and give them the confidence to go out again and just express themselves. That's what you need to give players confidence. But I'm also a big fan of horses for courses as well. We've seen the conditions here where it's been swinging around, it's been nipping about for the seamers, especially those guys who are able to pitch the ball up, like we saw Ireland do against England, where they had slightly less pace seamers, but they were able to push the ball a bit further up and trouble and keep the stumps in play and trouble the English batsmen. And I think someone in that England lineup, in that squad, I think Dave Willey is that guy who will push the ball up, keep it up around that, challenging the batters on the front foot with swing, coming back into the right-handers, and even taking it away from David Warner, who does sometimes struggle with the ball going away from him. I think he'd be an ideal selection, and he'd be a horses for courses. Do you pick him in Brisbane? Probably not. You can go with someone with an extra bit of pace with the bounce and everything, but especially here, I'd be looking at someone like David Willey, unless, as you said, it's reduced to 5 overs.
Yes. Then it really
does all change. Yes. You probably wouldn't even play Adil Rashid. Then you start looking at Chris Jordan's. You start looking at Tamar Mills. And obviously you've got Woody in the side already. It's going to be 1 over.
Would you play him in a 5 overs?
Yeah, I would, because of his pace. It's not easy just to. As a batsman in a 5 over game, you haven't got time to get set, and to hit someone who's bowling 150 Ks plus. To just hit him within your first few balls, just stand there and slot him into the stands is so hard at that pace. He can pick up wickets, and if you're picking up wickets, regardless of how many overs the game is, if you're picking up wickets, it restricts teams, because new batters are coming in. They take 1 or 2 balls to get going, get the pace of it does become difficult.
Yeah. Well, the reason I asked was he could also sort of fly around everywhere if they got a bit of a flying edge.
Yes, he could do, but he's only got 6 balls.
Yeah.
He's only got 6 balls. They could miss 3 of those balls, especially if it's swinging, because the ball would be brand new.
Yeah.
For those 5 overs, and if it's swinging around, there'll be a lot of plays and misses. You're right; it could fly around, edges over third man and all that sort of stuff, but you got to go with gas. I think with 5 overs, I'm not sure spinner is your man. Here, you'd go with there's 3 overs. Jordan's 1, Tamar Mills is 1. You got Woody's 1.
Yeah.
Who else have we got?
Ben Stokes.
Ben Stokes maybe will get 1 in there. So that's what I'd go with.
Well, there's some activity now, which is good news, because the ground staff have reappeared. They're wearing light blue tops, and you'll hear a cheer because that first sheet. Only the first, and there's a number yet, but the first one at least is being folded away, and that's the one that covers the bowlers' run-ups at the southern end, at the far end, and there's a lot of weight on there, some water, obviously they've got to try and tug that off, which they might need some help from that tractor actually that's parked up there, because there's some more manpower arriving and try and help them pull that enormous sheet away. But it does suggest that there's quite a lot of water on that, which will have to be dried up, or it's just going to land over there in that fielding position. Anyway, that's a good sign. They're taking it away, and that at least suggests that there's some optimism out there. The crowd is gathering. You could hear from that murmur of applause, I think, as that sheet was taken away. You can hear people coming in. And umpire Dahl's arrived, another good sign, and even better, he's got his umbrella down. Umpire Dahl is a man who doesn't like to get his hair wet from experience. And if he's got his umbrella rolled up, then there is no rain falling. You can be sure of that.
No.
He's quite hirsute and he's proud of it.
He's got some frizzy hair, hasn't he?
Yeah, and he likes it. He doesn't like to get it wet.
Might turn into a big bouffant at some stage if it gets too much water on it.
If his umbrella's down, he's confident that it's not going to get wet. So he's striding out, looking, again, quite purposeful. So these are positive signs. Oh, mind you, look at all that water that's come off over there. I mean, it'll get mopped up, but that's why that sheet was so heavy. There's puddles of it over there now, just beyond the circle on the left-hand side of the ground. So again, it'll be an area that the umpires will look at, but that's out of the area. We've heard a lot about the determination to play, haven't we? And there was that match in Tasmania between South Africa and Zimbabwe that I think clearly went a bit too far, and there were injuries and the rain was coming down really quite hard.
Yeah. I mean, was there injuries?
Well, there was
suspected injuries.
The possibility of some injuries.
Yes. I think there's a difference.
You're being a bit cynical there, Mr. Hodge.
Oh, yeah, a little bit actually. Yeah, I think when the game was on the line, I'm not throwing things out there, but I'm just saying that sometimes you can just push a little bit too far. We are in the business of entertainment, I guess, and when there's an opportunity to play a game, and look, there's some patrons. The ground's actually filling up quite nicely now, so. They expect to see a contest, and if it's all fit for both sides, I think get out there and let's slog it on. 5 overs a game minimum. You can stretch it out to 8 or 10, even better. But
it's a fine line, isn't it, between putting the players at risk, and serving the 60,000 or so who are going to come in here tonight.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? If this was a test match, we'd be back in the hotel probably 5 hours ago, and we would have packed up and gone home. But this is cricket. My friend who's driving home down to the Peninsula, Jules, he's texted me and said that the rain seems to be cleared up. So coming across the bay, it looks clear on his side. So he's optimistic that he'll be home on the couch watching the fixture anytime soon.
We'll go with Jules. Keep Brad informed. Now I'm getting excited here because for the first time on this trip, I've got to do one of these little crossings that you do on Australian radio.
Go for it.
I thought the Country Hour for many years was actually a country music that we used to queue up. It turns out it was sort of a farmer's programme, apparently, about the price of wheat and so on. So it's not a country hour, but in 10 seconds, we're going to welcome our listeners over in West Australia. So we'll just get ready for that. It's looking positive. Another sheet has been removed from in front of us, which is good news. Good day, West Australia. There we go. I've been building up to that. Lovely to have you with us. Welcome to Melbourne for what should be a real highlight of this tournament, England against Australia. But as you'll have been seeing and hearing and seeing on your tellies, the weather here is dire. It rained and rained and rained. We've had one washout this afternoon already. The Ireland-Afghanistan game is gone, so they've taken 1 point each. But as the crowd gathers here on this cold, breezy and wet Melbourne evening, the covers are being taken off, but there's been an awful lot of rain, and not just today, but over the course of, the last week, really. We're so lucky to get that India-Pakistan game in. Looking back now with the weather that there has been, that someone was looking down kindly on that game, not just in terms of the quality and excitement of it, but the fact that it was played at all, because the weather really has been terrible in these parts for some time now, not just this week, but a lot of rain has fallen, as we know. So, look, we're just hoping that something's going to happen. The umpire's going to come out in half an hour's time to inspect. Umpire Dyer is already on duty. He's the fourth umpire in this particular game, which might be something of a demotion, actually, for one of the most senior umpires on the circuit. But anyway, he's just surveying, overseeing. Well, the reason for that reaction from Brad and from me was that he literally just touched the surface of the ground there, Brad, and a lot of water shot up.
Don't mean
you
to
saw
say,
that too, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. And look, one of the things which came out of the dressing room when I was down there earlier was that Alim Dar, who was officiating in the fixture, I think beforehand, the Afghanistan versus Ireland fixture, he said there's no chance of playing this evening. I'm a fraction more on the optimistic side. He's thinking of exactly what he saw there, where he swished his umbrella across the turf and a whole array of water just sprayed up everywhere, nearly over Aaron Finch's New Balance shoes. But
yes, that's a bowler's run-up where he's standing.
Yeah, that's the issue apparently, that this surface water that we can't see visually from up here is just sort of sitting underneath. There's plenty of it, but having said that though, this ground staff, they'll work tirelessly to get this up and running and as fit as they can do it. I've seen before yesterday and also today where I'm not sure what technology they've got or what's in there, but they spray sand or some particles around. It's not sawdust, but it sprays sand.
It's sort of a fertilizer distributor, wasn't it? Like sand coming out of it.
And I've never seen that before at a cricket ground. So they're trying everything humanly possible to get this fixture up and running. But it's going to be a test. There's no doubt about it. But the good news is, Aggers and Ravi, this is. I'm not sure whether this is. Happens in England or local knowledge, but when you can actually see through the clouds, this is the lower clouds and up to the higher clouds, that's the first time that's happened all day.
All right, that's good news, is it?
That's good news. So if you're in the aviation industry, then you might have half a clue what I'm talking about. But, that's a positive sign.
It just looks low, grey and horrible to me, but I see there's one or two little...
Yeah, it's this is the whole day is basically just being grey, right? It just looks like one big, huge, long cloud. Now we've just seen particles of broken, not sunshine because it's later in the evening, but it's not one big whole cloud. So I'm optimistic. Even over the top of the Shane Warne stand, you can see some lighter shades of cloud.
Lighter shades of grey.
Yes.
Okay.
Be a good book somewhere, wouldn't it?
Let's hope, fingers crossed, that we do have some joy. They're continuing to take the covers away. One or two England players have emerged, Sam Curran being one of them, I can see down there. And just waiting to see, I think, what they're going to do. There's still a lot of water to come off the main sheet lying over the playing area. And I must say, I don't know if you saw earlier on, Brad, but they took that main sheet off a bit. And whoever is going to play on the right-hand pitch is going to enjoy themselves. The drop-in pitches that we talked about here, of course, my word, it's green. I don't know who's going to be playing on there, but emerald green, and of course it's not seeing any sunlight. So that'll be an interesting one. Another sheet goes away, and the water from that will be dumped just beyond the square again, where the last lot was. And so that's where we are at the moment. We're about 25 minutes away from the umpires coming out and inspecting, and it's so hard, isn't it? What do you do if you're an administrator here? If you're one of the authorities, you've got sold all these tickets. If it does stop raining, and yet the outfield and the ground itself is a quagmire, it's difficult, isn't it? You've got people saying, hang on a minute, it's stopped raining, what's wrong with this? Get out there and play. I'll be honest, the other day I thought the Ireland-England game, the lack of communication was extraordinary, and we'll hear in a minute from the England camp. They were exactly the same. They were completely in the dark about when cut-off times were, or there's been no information given at all. So I just hope that people who are in here today, they're probably locals, so they know anyway. They've looked out of their office windows or something all day. They've seen that it's raining, but I just hope they know that the prospects are not great, and particularly those who might be shelling out some dollars to come and play, to come and watch the play, because that is still the fact. As well as the fact that we're keenly watching here as the sheets are taken away. It is clearly very, very wet out there, and you can see, is that Paul Collingwood?
Yeah, it's
there?
Paul Collingwood just sort of
testing that area, that's cover, square leg mid wicket, if you like, the other way.
Yeah, he'll be thinking that if I take a 56 wedge from here, I'll take half the surface with me if I don't get the whole title. Look, it'd be interesting. I wouldn't mind seeing Liam Livingston's got a football out there, and it'd be interesting to see if he kicks the football up in the air, whether it actually makes a splash when it comes down or not.
Yes.
That'd be a good way to test to see how much moisture is there, but...
Is that a rugby ball or an Aussie rules
It's a rugby ball, that one.
So we've got the real one.
Yep.
Right, and you've got that one. Okay, well, we'll keep an eye on that, see if he does drop it or kick it, and see what happens. So, yes, just a reaffirmation from what I was saying earlier that 9:46 is a cut-off here to get 5 overs per side. So that's 11:46 just before midday at home. Looking at the radar, well, there's no doubt that the rain, certainly the bulk of it, has gone. There's one or two little patches of it there that remain out to the southwest, but the radar that's just been is completely filled in all day is definitely clearer now. And Umpire Dahl's still got his umbrella wrapped up, and now is the big moment, because this is going to be the main sheet that's taken off, and I think it needs some manpower here, because that's an enormous plastic sheet. It's got a lot of water on it.
Yeah, I'm not surprised they haven't run the super sopper over the covers to pick up a fair bit of that surface water, because it's going to be heavy. It will be difficult to shift. And where is that going to be dumped as well? There must be certain sections in the ground where the drainage is, well, the curators would know where the real drainage points are.
Well, it's going to be a big job to take that off. But again, just, in cautionary terms, I would say that things are starting to happen. But again, just couched with that thought and that knowledge from the England camp from earlier that it's going to take a lot to get this game on. Although there is that possibility of having 5 overs per side at a 9:45.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I like what Ravi was saying about, changing the side and horses for courses, and does it upset everyone else who's been in the side? It's a real conundrum for the coaches. They'll be debating about it long and hard.
What will the Aussies do you think?
I think they'll make a couple of changes for sure. If it is a 5 over game, I'm a little bit with Ravi saying that, particularly someone like Cameron Green might come in, and particularly even open the batting.
Where's your captain going to bat?
Well, that's the thing.
Overs.
Well, he might shift down. And look, the only thing that may stop Finchy from doing that is possibly the ego might take a bit of a hit.
Yeah.
But in terms of form...
To explain to listeners back at home, he's been in terrible form. There's a lot of pressure on him building up here.
He has. And the longer the game is, the more chance you can actually find form. But when you're actually in a short 5 over game, that's the thing. You're not finding form against Mark Wood steaming at 150. You can build into an innings in T20 cricket a little bit, particularly if you've got guys around you who are firing. But, this is the first time where you might see Cameron Green opening with Tim David, for example.
That'd be interesting.
That's something which may be talked about.
Listen to that. There's a big sheet coming off.
And the water's all been dumped on the surface.
Well, I hope it hasn't. That's the danger in that particular technique. Now they've got the hard work. They've folded it halfway. They've got all that water to get off and make sure that it doesn't spill.
He can't move.
They don't know how to deal with water here. I guess they're not used to it. They need the English groundsman.
They need the hover. The hover cover.
Yep, they need the English groundsman.
I'm just a bit worried. This water,
it's going to dump
it's
right
going
on
to come
the
right over the square, isn't it?
Yep.
It's gone upside down. We can't see at the moment, but they've simply dragged it off.
Well, there it is.
Oh, well. There are gallons of water that have come off that cover absolutely in the place where you don't want it. And he's wading through that bloke there. He needs galoshes on. Well, that's a shambles.
They have drains there on the edge of the squares, so it's not the worst place to dump it. It's probably the best place to dump it because
well, stand correct. It's just gallon. There's a lake.
Yeah, that would have been designed that way, Aggers, that you actually just do dump it off there and it soaks through. And there's at the end of each 4 points of the square, there is big drainage system there. So That would have been well known. They still have to mop it all up with the super sopper. Here he comes now. He's starting to come across.
He is.
You can actually see it starting to disappear
Melt
now.
away a bit. Well, okay, I'll stand corrected there, but it's just there's so much water there now, right on the edge of the square, and there's a wave as the driver comes towards us with his super sopper. There's like a sort of mini tsunami in front of him.
You wouldn't want to be fielding at short cover, would you?
No.
Eh?
No, you wouldn't.
Need some footy boots, not spikes.
You wouldn't want to field short cover in a 5-over game, no. You'd have to have your helmet and box on.
That's a lot of water there. That's a lot of water.
Yeah, well, the super sopper tub might actually be full, just going one strip of that water.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how many gallons it actually holds or litres.
Well, it's a brave technique. I think I would have preferred to have seen him mop it up off the sheet and then take it away. But anyway, it's whatever's happened has happened. He's mopping it up, and we'll see if that has left any lasting damage there. Umpire Dar's talking to Mike Hussey, actually. He's bravely wearing shorts out there in the middle. He's England's batting consultant, of course. In fact, England's coaching team is full of Australians. David Saker, bowling-wise, and of course Matthew Mott is the head coach of the one-day teams. It must be a strange feeling for all of them. I'd imagine. In fact, I spoke to Matthew Mott the other day, just after their defeat to Ireland, of course, and I started by asking him how he felt about that defeat to Ireland.
Yeah, obviously, you never like to lose games of cricket, but I thought Ireland came out and played really well. We were probably a bit slow to respond, and we paid the price. But yeah, I think everyone will be up and about today. We've got an optional session, and it's important that we take stock and realise that it's T20 is a game where you have to bounce back really quickly.
And what lessons have you learned, do you think, from that? I mean, is it inevitable in a way that in T20 you are going to lose a match or two early on?
Yeah, not inevitable, but I think a lot of teams that have won World Cups have lost, particularly early. I think it can be a bit of a sting that you need. We don't want to lose any games, but I think it's probably going to galvanise the group in terms of our approach. I think there's no doubt yesterday was just a bit of a one-off. It's the first time I've seen that team timid for a while, and I think that'll be an opportunity for us to learn and say, well, next time we're in that situation, we really need to take positive intent and get on with it.
Why do you think they were timid?
I think that with rain around, start times, pending whether we're going to go on and off, it does create that a little bit of anxiety about the result itself. But there's no excuse. I think we've played enough cricket to know that you've just got to play what's in front of you, and we probably just didn't do that last night.
England were behind the DLS all the way through, actually. What sort of equipment do you have? Have you got a rain radar? I mean, I know you can't see the sky at the MCG to see the showers coming, but I mean, have you got stuff at your disposal that can tell you if rain's on the way?
It's a bit of a catch-22 with that. We definitely had a radar. We knew the rain was about. But unfortunately with that, it's still a bit hit and miss. If you follow all the radars, there's sometimes it rains when there's nothing on the radar, and so you don't want to get preoccupied with that. And I think that's really about the messaging out to the group. Like, there's times you go, maybe we should let them know that it's just about to come down, but they're still got to play what's in front of them. And if you get too complicated with that and your messaging, all of a sudden you lose 3 or 4 wickets and you're right behind anyway. But we tried. I think the intent was out there to get in front of it. But I thought, credit to Ireland, they bowled well in those conditions.
And were you surprised when you saw Ireland bowl, what the ball was doing, in fact?
Yeah, well, I think, they're a very different bowling attack to us, but they clearly swung the ball, and that risk reward, they bowled a lot of wides trying to swing the ball, but they definitely exploited the conditions well. In the power play, if you get the ball swinging, as we've found out a lot over the last sort of year, you're a chance to take wickets, and if you get in front and take wickets in the power play, it makes it tricky. But in saying that, we back our depth and our batting order to sort of absorb that. If we're not that worried normally about losing wickets, but the shortened game certainly brought that into play.
It's often quite hard in T20 cricket to tell when a batsman's in form or not, but it just looked last night, like Malan, for instance, it looked to be out of form. Hales, you could say, possibly too. How do you get batsmen into form? Because they've got no time out in the middle. What do you do?
Yeah, that's a tough one, and Malan's been probably the form player over the last 6 months. Whether it's his 100 form or in Pakistan played a couple of great knocks as well. But unlike 4-day cricket, when you're struggling, you can just absorb and stay out there. But you've actually got to hit the ball, and he was clearly trying to hit the ball last night. It wasn't a lack of intent. It's a tough place to be T20 when you can't get the ball out of the middle and teams are bowling well at you. I'm sure he'll have a hit today, maybe even indoors. Just try and feel the ball off the middle again, and he'll bounce back well.
And as far as team goes for Australia, I mean, it's tempting to say sweeping changes after a loss to Ireland. But what's your thought about that?
Yeah, definitely no sweeping changes. I really like the balance of our team, and right up until we got rained off last night, I thought we had the right balance because we had that bad day that you don't want, and I still thought we were going to win the game. So that shows, I think, as captain coach Joss and I were, you're always talking about what you could do differently. I still think we've got the right balance, and we just got to keep backing that. One bad performance, you can't reinvent yourself overnight. We've just got to back that and probably just execute a little bit better.
Yeah. Well, it certainly tees up an extraordinary game, doesn't it, here against Australia? I mean, you're Australia, you've got David Saker, you've got Mike Hussey, all involved in England coaching. How does that feel?
Yeah, I think it's good. I mean, those two guys come on board probably more by accident than great design, but they were both available, obviously, in Australian World Cup, and we sort of sent out the messages to come in, and they both nearly bit my hand off. They were keen to be involved, and I think they're both great coaches. We've got some great coaches in England as well. Carl Hopkinson's, I think, making a real difference with our fielding efforts, and Richard Dawson, unfortunately, is back home with he hurt his groin in Pakistan, but they've definitely added a lot. There's been a lot of positive chat around just the energy that they bring. Obviously, Mike's experience in World Cups has been great as well. I think the players are really feeding off it, and more importantly, when we've had a day like yesterday, I think they'll bring a real perspective to like we've lost a game of cricket, still got a lot to play for, and let's get our head around it.
But in terms of facing Australia, how does that feel for you?
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, I was in Australian women's coach for a long time. I think it'd be harder facing the women's team. But I've got a lot of good friends in that team. But we're incredibly determined to progress through to the semi-finals here. They're in front of us. For me, it's another team that we're playing against, a very good team. But excited to play on the big stage, MCG, with a lot to play for.
Yeah. And you've only been in this job a short time, Matthew. I mean, this will be the biggest game that you've faced in that time. What will it say about your team and what progress you've made, do you think, the outcome of tomorrow's game?
Not so much the outcome, but how we respond is important. I think there's fine margins in T20. But if we play a good game and Australia is better than us, that's okay with me. But I think we need to show a response. We need to come out with a really attacking mindset, maybe throw caution to the wind a little bit and see how we go. But the outcome itself won't define where the team's at, but the process of tomorrow is really important. I think we can't rewind yesterday and have it again, but we can change how we approach tomorrow. And I think it's an exciting challenge for us to bounce back. I think a lot of people, after one result, maybe written us off. I don't think that it makes much difference. We still want to win every game that we play, and we can still progress through the semis, and from there on, it's anyone's game.
Well, that's Matthew Mott speaking to me a couple of days ago. Very croaky then. I'm sorry about that. Certainly a bit better today. And looking out, I can see again more work being done, and they're really trying to press on here and get this ground fit for play. There's going to be an inspection. Where are we now? Just about 12 minutes from now. The umpires will come out and join Mr. Dar, who's still prodding around out there with his umbrella and just trying to make sure that, they can get something. They can get some sort of game in. And a reminder, they can go through here to, 9:15, quarter to 10, quarter to 12 back at home to get 5 overs per side in. So we'll keep an eye on that. I mentioned the Australians, of course, involved with the England side. Let's hear from Mike Hussey, who's been speaking with Matt Henry.
So, Mike, how are you finding being part of an England team at a World Cup?
It was a bit weird to start with, I must admit, but once we sort of got to work and working with the players, it's been fantastic. Great bunch of guys. They really work hard and are determined to do very well at this World Cup.
Yeah. And can you just explain how it all came about? It was a call from Matthew Mott, I think, is that right?
Yeah, pretty much. I was on holiday down south of Western Australia, and sort of out of the blue, a bit of a call from Motty and what do you reckon? And I think Rob Keefe sort of followed it up as well, and had to think about it for a little while, but it was just a great opportunity to be involved with a new environment, a different country, see how they go about it, and jumped at the chance, really.
You're obviously an Australia legend. You had so many battles with England. You think back to 10-11 here and all those games. Was there ever any doubt with it being England to taking the job? Sorry.
No, not really. I've sort of looked at a bigger picture than just the Australia versus England rivalry. I was probably a little bit worried about what the public reaction was going to be initially, and there's been a few comments here or there, but I don't really mind who I'm coaching with. It's more developing those individual relationships, and I like watching people develop and get better, whether they're Indian, Australian, Kiwis, English guys. It doesn't bother me whatsoever. So the bigger picture is just sort of helping players get a little bit better.
You mentioned the public there, but have any of your former Australian teammates had much to say?
A few little quiet comments here or there, but they understand, that this is the coaching landscape. We see a lot of coaches from all around the world coming and going to different places, and I think it's a great opportunity to sort of share ideas and share learnings and things like that. But yeah, there's certainly been a few quiet little comments on the side.
And how have you found, as you mentioned earlier, how have you found the England team and being in this environment?
It's been really nice, a really calm environment. I think that's one thing that's really stood out to me, and I think that'll hold the team in good stead, especially in a big tournament like a World Cup, where there's going to be ups and downs along the way, and I think that the team that doesn't get too high when they're winning and nor too low if things don't go to plan, it'll hold them in good stead. So that sort of calmness has sort of been led by Joss, certainly, and also Matthew Mott as well, and all the other players. So I think they've acknowledged all the great work that's been done in this white ball team in the past, under Owen Morgan and the previous sort of regime, but they sort of want to build on that as well and sort of keep looking forward, so playing what's in front of them.
Mm-hmm. And it's a bit of an Australian takeover on the coaching staff, isn't it, with yourself, Matthew Mott, David Circa. How do you think the team are finding that?
Oh, there's been a few sly comments. Certainly, it's funny listening to Ben Stokes sort of talk like an Aussie around the dressing room every second of the day.
So is he doing impressions of you?
Plenty of impressions been done there, yeah. But it's all in good humour. There's still a good English flavour in the dressing room as well with Collie and Hoppo as well. So and the other staff are English as well. So it's I think it does. It is a bit of a bonus because obviously this tournament's in Australia and we've got a good handle on the conditions and so we can sort of certainly pass that on as well.
So what sort of things have you been using your experience to pass on, like you said?
Well, I think my sort of style of coaching is more to work with the players. They're an experienced bunch of guys, a couple of young guys in there, but generally they've got a good feel of their own game and what they need to do to prepare and what they need to do to perform well on game day. So for me, it's more working with that rather than trying to impress too much different stuff on them, and just trying to help them get into a good frame of mind to go out there and play their best cricket. It's obviously a massive tournament and there's a lot of external distraction, a lot of pressure, but if we can somehow just try and clear all that junk out and just focus on playing the game, what's in front of them, then hopefully that gives them the best chance of playing at their best.
And which players have stood out for you over the last few weeks and months that you've been working with them?
Well, I've sort of worked with a few of the guys at the IPL in the past. So, I've obviously been pretty impressed with Moeen Ali over, a few years now, and good to sort of get to understand his game. But he's playing particularly well at the moment, and he has done for a little while now. So hopefully he can have a big impact on the tournament. I've been really impressed with the way Joss has taken over the team and added his sort of touch on the leadership side of things, and he's come back really keen, obviously after an injury break. But all the guys have been very impressive in their own ways, and that's what I quite like. I like that they're all a little bit different. They all play their own way, and so just trying to embrace their individuality in the team sort of environment.
And there's a few games to go, but obviously Friday here against Australia, there's the prospect that England could knock Australia out of their own World Cup effectively on Friday. How do you think that night will be for you?
Oh, no, to be fine. I've sort of come into every game just wanting to enjoy the cricket. A lot of our work's sort of done in the lead up to the game, and then as a coach you can sort of just let the guys go and play. I don't like to look at results sort of too much. It's more about how the individual players are sort of going about their work. So it will be a strange feeling. Coming Australia versus England's always going to be a massive game. I just want the guys to play their best cricket, whichever team comes out on top on the day, I don't have much saying how all that sort of goes on. But yeah, it will be a weird feeling, sort of hoping England sort of wins the game on Friday.
Well, we'll see. Mike Hussey is out there, along with a number of England players, not all of them by any means. And there are a few Australians sort of loitering, I'd say. There's no practice going on. There's no warm-up going on. And just waiting, I think, for the moment when the umpires come out in 5 minutes or so to come out and inspect to see whether or not this outfield is fit for play. And that's really what this is all about. I'm looking at the radar, and there's a shower or two up there to the southwest, but certainly nothing the like of which we've seen over the last 2 or 3 days. That's cleared away now. I don't think forever, as it were, because the forecast is still pretty unsettled for this part of the world for a while. But well, the lights are coming on now as well, and that certainly energised the crowd. First time they've come on, these enormous floodlights that light up the MCG. They haven't bothered firing them up until now. So again, just an indication that they're going to try and get this game underway. And well, there was that conversation as we had earlier about the captains of that South Africa-Zimbabwe game, who seemed to think that maybe the desire to play, the will to play, was pushed a little bit beyond what was acceptable on that particular occasion. And how is it going to be today? It's so hard to see from here. Umpire Dar's found something there. It's a bit like an ice skater there, almost doing a pirouette, pointing to a member of the ground staff to do something about that, and that's more or less halfway inside the circle and the offside. In fact, he's prodding around. He's like an old mother hen out there at the moment, scratching around, finding these damp areas that need to be sorted out before his colleagues, Messrs Brown and Wilson, come out to come and decide whether or not this game will go ahead. And I guess Corbin Middlemas is alongside me, my colleague from ABC here in Melbourne. I wonder if they do ask the captains, and particularly the captains actually, about what they think about this. I mean, here we are, still in the relatively early stages of a tournament. You don't want someone to go a cropper out there, do you? But on the other hand, you've got a big crowd building now. It's a very important game. They want to play.
What sort of message would it send, Aggers, as a captain, if you were to vote no?
Oh, yes.
It almost feels like now we're getting ourselves into a position where we got to play.
They're going to have to play.
We got to try and play, and the captains almost have to have the attitude to say, look, yeah, let's go. If we can get some overs out, let's play a shortened game. But you're right. I'm sure there'd be a bit of trepidation as to thinking, gee, maybe if we just split the points tonight and then see how we go in the latter stages of the group. We mentioned a couple of times now, England have matches to come against New Zealand and Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
There were more tricky opponents than what Australia have to come. So Australia play Afghanistan and Ireland in their remaining 2 games. If they do split the points tonight, it'll mean essentially they're still even headed into those remaining 2 games in the group. But for a day which has been incredibly wet, we've had continued showers. We lost an entire game between Afghanistan and Ireland, which was meant to be played in the afternoon. There is an awful amount of optimism. The ground is filling up, so it feels like sort of word has got around.
Yes.
I'm sure people listening to the ABC and through the BBC have started to hear the word that they're preparing the ground to play, and it feels like it's 4 times as many people here as what there were even 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, definitely. And they're coming out into the sort of the exposed areas, if you like. So it clearly isn't raining at the moment, which is great. That Super Sopper is now chugging along in the area that umpire Dar was pointing at with his umbrella. So that's being dealt with. It's interesting, the games to come, as you mentioned. Yes, so Australia do have Ireland and Afghanistan to come, and you'd think, although Ireland, who knows, but you'd think that Australia would back themselves to win those 2. England do have New Zealand. The one thing that England do have in their favour out of that with the Sri Lanka game is that that's the last match in the group. So in other words, if it comes down to a run rate situation, England would know that perhaps they've got to get a target in 17 overs or whatever it may be. So that gives them a little bit of a leg up there. But they do have 2 potentially tough games there to come. More equipment being carried backwards and forwards. Alex Hales is going out for a look. Now, here come the umpires. This is a key moment. Well, they're walking out there. Joel Wilson, who I suspect probably rather fancied himself on the dance floor, has walked out there a bit like Fred Astaire over the mud that there's gathered just over the boundary edge between the boundary and where everyone, the traffic, if you like, is walking backwards and forwards. That is just mud. And he tiptoed through there, the Trinidad and Tobago umpire, and he's walking out now to go and inspect. Now this is the key moment, because do they say, well, we'll come back again in another hour and have a look. It's hard to see how it's going to get any drier, simply because here we are now on a cool evening. Obviously, there's no sun. It's quite a stiff breeze, but I'm not sure how much they get that down actually at the on the ground level. You can see it pulling at the flags up there on the screen. But they're poking around. They're starting at the area that Mr. Dar had located a moment ago, and it seems as if he's rather located these areas. He's taking them on a bit of a tour, because he's already mapped out, a bit like someone playing battleships. He's worked out where these areas are, and so he's showing them off.
Interestingly, Agus, that's at the city end of the ground. So you made the observation earlier about the fact that they let all the water run off on the sort of the punt road end of the ground, for our listeners that understand the geography of the MCG earlier, where there's better drainage there, and they do have sort of drainage areas on the corner of that centre wicket area, which is raised compared to the rest of the ground. But the area that he's looking at is at the other end, where the drainage isn't as good. And as I say that, he's now making his way towards the punt road end, and again he's looking at the corners in particular. So they've been able to get a lot of that surface water off the ground, but it's mainly the corners that seem to be the problem.
Well, that's the area that worried me, where they are now. I didn't know about this drainage on the corners, but that's where gallons of water were apparently deliberately displaced off the covers. And I noticed an Australian player going over and just sort of feeling it, if you like, with his foot. But that's where they're going through it quite quickly at the moment. But again, there's lots of foot prodding going on there. That's the area where all that water came off the covers. And they're generally just wandering around. They're doing it quite briskly. More Australians have appeared. I see Aaron Finch there in his shorts. Not really a day for shorts.
How about Alex Hales? He's ready early. He's got his full playing kit on. So he's got the cap on, the long sleeve red shirt, and the blue trousers as well. So he's ready early, whereas everybody else seems to be more in their practice kit.
There's another machine appeared there. We've got the roller going up and down the pitch. Now, this is one of those, it's like a lawnmower rip start that the groundsman has there now. And it looks like a lawnmower from here. But I don't suppose it is one, because all the mowing's being done and the pitch is being rolled, and he's set it up in that wet patch that umpire Dar was interested in earlier. Now they're going down to the run-ups down at the southern end. These umpires in these bright pink cerise-coloured tops, or anoraks, if you like. And now comes the moment, I think, in which they've got to make some sort of decision, because they've gathered together, the three of them, and you've had a look, fellas. You know what there is out there. What are you going to do? And they're deep in conversation. They've got a crowd gathering. It's so hard to tell. Come on, you're the expert around here, Colin. I mean, how many are here now?
It's such a big ground, so it's always hard to make a prediction. Is it a fifth full? Would we say there's as many as 20,000 here?
It seems incredible to suggest that there's over a Trent Bridge-sized crowd already in here. And yet there's way more empty seats than occupied. But that's the scale of this colossal stadium. Umpire Dar now is heading off. He seems to, although he's fourth umpire, he seems to be the man in charge out there. And we've got the fella there with his fertiliser spreader again, putting out it's sort of a grey-coloured sand that's just being sprinkled onto the surface. I've never seen that happen before, and Brad was saying he'd never seen it before either. It is literally a fertiliser spreader that's chucking out, some sort of drying material, a bit sand or something or other. But he's going up and down there, followed by the Super Sopper. Umpire Dar's quite animated now. He's waving his umbrella around. Now there's a look at the watch. That's always an interesting sign from the umpire. A definite look there by Chris Brown at his watch. They're getting to a stage where they're going to have to play, whether players like it or not.
It would be an enormous tease, wouldn't it, for the people that are making their way in, if all of a sudden we got to this point and they decided, the outfield's not in a condition that's appropriate for a game of cricket. The whole ground staff is out there doing their absolute best to present it in condition to play. And as you said, this conversation continues between the umpires, but you get the feeling, Agus, despite what we were told earlier, it looks like a game of cricket's about to unfold.
No, I mean, it came quite firmly to me from the England dressing room that it looked most unlikely. as we know, Andrew Bilburney in his press conference, obviously is an abandoned match, also said that he couldn't see this game taking place. So we shall see. These little super soppers, little mini ones, are being taken down to the boundary edge now. They'll be emptied. There's someone down here waving an Australian flag. In optimism, really, but I think in growing hope that we're going to get some sort of game going on here at some stage, say 9:45 here, 9:45 midday at home is the cut-off for 5 overs per side, and the Australians, half a dozen of them or so. I can see Pat Cummins down there as well, just gathering. They're waiting to see what's going to happen here. More waving of the arm from umpire Dar. I mean, how much more can these machines do? I mean, how much water can they actually soak up? Because it's in the soil, isn't it? It's just everything's just it's like mud. And where these heavyweight machines have gone over the ground, obviously that makes some sort of imprint as well. Well, even the mobile robot camera has been unleashed for the first time this evening, so that's warming up as well. Again, another sign of things taking place. The radar, looks pretty clear. There's a blib and a blob, but that's about all out there to the southwest. So a bit of local knowledge, Corbin. Come on, I'm going to put you on the spot here.
I think we're going to play cricket. The stumps are up. The players are out there sort of milling around. So it looks like we're going to get a game underway. So now we've got these padding sponsors, which are a little bit unusual in Australian conditions, obviously being an ICC tournament. So usually our advertising sponsors are just sprayed onto the ground, which you see side on, both at cover and mid-wicket either side of the pitch, whereas they obviously take a little bit of surface water, so they're being dried out as well, which I imagine, Aggers, that would be one of the last steps that you'd take once you've done the more important areas of the ground. And now
this is interesting. The umpires have called Joss Butler up. They've had a word with Pat Cummins and Aaron Finch, sort of senior Australians, and Aaron Finch, the captain, of course. Now they actually gestured for Joss Butler, who was down on the boundary here, sort of poking about, to go and have a conversation with them. And this clearly is key, and I wonder what Aaron Finch said. In fact, I think he might be going over to join as well now. Is that Finch there in the shorts coming up behind? Stocky chap. Whoever it is walking past anyway, but
I think he's there. He's in the conversation, Aaron Finch, with the umpires and Joss Butler.
Yeah, so the two captains are being consulted, and I suspect what the umpires are saying is, look, this is not perfect. Everyone knows that. What do you think? And that looks to be the conversation. Umpire Wilson talking quite earnestly there to Aaron Finch, and he's saying, what do you reckon? And what do you say if you're a captain here? You'll have very much in your mind what your prospects are, how they're damaged or improved by playing or by taking a point and not playing. What possible risk you're putting your players to? There's still a lot of the tournament to come. I mean, there's a lot going on, isn't there?
Does this come down to a simple question of how conservative are you as a person? It's sort of if you play blackjack, do you sit on 16 or do you take the hit? And it sort of feels a little bit here where, what are the captains going to do and who does it advantage the most? What would you do, Aggers, if you were a captain and the umpire said, hey, this is how the ground presents?
I mean, you do have to try and play, don't you? I mean, what you'd want is that the two captains actually agree with each other.
Yep.
Don't you think? I mean, I don't think any decision necessarily is made there. In that particular conversation has now broken up, and the two captains are walking off together. Actually, Joss Butler with his hands in his pockets. Umpire Dar has been sent back on duty again by the two on fields, and now Aaron Finch and Joss Butler are still talking together, and I think that's important. I think both captains have to be on the same page, and if they say, come on, this isn't fit, we're being put under pressure here to play, or whatever it may be, then the captains can say together, we don't want to put our players' fitness at risk here. But there's clear that I think these two know each other very well. They play so much of this sort of cricket all around the world, and they know what's going on. And looking at that conversation, they clearly have a pretty good understanding together. So the two umpires have gone off. I just hope that we have an improvement in the communications than we had the other night when there was actually zero. It'd be great if we do get some sort of word up here about what's going on. But I think, looking at what's happening, I don't think a decision has been taken yet. Do you? Toss delayed is all we're being told up on the screen there. Coin toss delayed due to rain. Umpire Dar is standing in the sort of position he'd be in if he were actually officiating.
So we do have some news coming through, Aggers. The next inspection will take place at 8:15 p.m. local time, which is 35 minutes from now. So that's not the toss, that's the next inspection is going to take place at 8:15 local time.
So they could toss at 2:30 and start at 2:45, which would be an hour. I can't work out how many overs that would be per side, but it's possible, isn't it? But so that's the official news, and that there's an inspection at 8:15, 10:15 back at home. Yeah, I don't know how to read that really. The fact that they did bring the two captains in was interesting.
Yep. I think you sort of, as you keep saying, what are you going to establish in another 35 minutes of trying to dry the ground out, and what sort of impact you can actually have in 35 minutes. So they're continuing to do some work with that fertilizer type system that tries to soak up some of the water inside the 30-yard circle. So that's where the focus is at the moment. And there's also one of the manual super soppers which is being rolled around the outfield. More from Jonathan Agnew throughout the night. Corbin Middlemass alongside Brad Hodge and Ravi Bopara on Grandstand Cricket. The next inspection will take place at 8:15 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time, so that is just under 35 minutes from now. Now, how much improvement, Ravi, can be made in 35 minutes to an outfield just with a few groundsmen working on it?
Quite a bit, I think, especially with the super sopper. I don't think it's not going to get any more sun on it, so that's not going to dry anything. So it's mainly down to super sopper. Maybe the wind will play a factor for that half an hour. I think the most important thing is how are the run-ups. That's where the bowlers will be mostly concerned. They'll be jumping around that crease area to check if there's any water above the shoe. But if the run-ups are good, then you're good to go, I think.
Hodgie, you were talking about this special fertiliser which we're seeing. So I take it the idea of that sand or whatever they are that they're spraying on the outfield is essentially just trying to soak up as much water as possible. Is it as simple as that?
I can only think if that's the reason. Yeah, I'm not actually quite sure what it's in there, in this little fertiliser bucket which is being sprayed around, but seems to be doing a good purposeful job. But you can see Alim Dar trying to indicate to the ground staff about where they actually need it, and it's right behind the actual takeoff area where the bowlers would deliver the ball. So it must be a fair bit of moisture around there. That's the concern, particularly if fast bowlers are running in, no doubt about it. But I'm quite optimistic. I think there's a lot of activity out on the ground, which is suggesting that there might be an opportunity. Alim Dar is out there still trying to muster some troops around to make sure the conditions are fit. So if it wasn't anywhere near being possible, then they would have shaken hands and disappeared already, and Alim Dar be back in the sheds. But there's a lot of people out on the ground. Half the teams are out there. The Australian team's actually having dialogue with Adil Rashid and Sam Curran out in the middle to have a chat. But all in all, there looks to be plenty of action going ahead, or looking like it may go ahead.
Hodgie, I mean, you've played a lot of cricket, and Ravi, you obviously are both sort of captain teams at different times. How would you feel if you're Aaron Finch and Josh Butler and they come to you and essentially say, fellas, it's on you guys. So we understand that, as Agus was saying, it's not perfect, but there is the opportunity to get a game away here. There's now 25, 30,000 people that have made their way in. The crowd keeps increasing. Would you feel the pressure as a player to say, look, we're going to have to play here, even if it's against what you would have done if perhaps there wasn't the same audience?
Well, first of all, it shouldn't actually be up to the captains to make a choice. It should be up to the administrators and the match referee to decide whether things are fit and ready to go. If it's 50-50 borderline, then that's why you have a senior management or a senior person to adjudicate whether it's get out there and play. The captains will play. If they're actually instructed to play, they'll get out there and do the best they possibly can. Are conditions ideal? No, they're not. But Ravi and I were just talking about how huge this game is. And both sides will be apprehensive to get out there. And the reason being is that whoever wins will probably more than likely go through to the final. Whoever loses is nearly out the back door. So when conditions aren't ideal for you as a unit, you're fairly nervous about the outcome. So I think that the way things are moving, the crowd's filling up, I think there will be external pressures and they'll feel that. And so will the umpires and so will the match referee. But if you get out there, most sportsmen, if someone tells you you're playing, you'll get out there, strap the canoes on and get out and mark centre and get on with it.
And also, I think for both captains, this game, you want to play this game because then destiny's in your own hands. If this game doesn't happen, then, as an Aussie captain, you're thinking, we need New Zealand to beat England. It's not in your hands anymore, and that's not what you want. If you're gonna go out of a tournament, you want to go out of a tournament knowing you gave it everything, and so, therefore Finchy would want to play this game. And if they win this game, they pretty much knock England out. But if they don't win this game, at least they got the opportunity to play the game rather than miss out here and then it's not in their hands anymore. It's down to how well England play in their next two games. So I think it's important, and it works both ways, not just for the Australian captain but also for the English captain. That's the way that both teams will be thinking or should be thinking, and say, look, it's in our own hands. The best team goes through, and whoever wins out of us two deserves to go through.
If there was one team miles ahead on the points table, you'd be trying to deflect and not play every chance you can, but they're both level pegging, and it's such a huge game that both sides actually need to play to get a result, to enhance their chance of going through, which Ravi said.
We all played high-level cricket. You guys both played international cricket in all three forms, and I played under 17s on hard wickets, but I also like my cricket. I was interested, Hodgie, in what you said in particular about the mindset of a cricketer. And this is probably what sets average park cricketers apart from the true greats of the game. I'm surprised when so many of these guys would have arrived at the ground tonight thinking, look, they're not going to play a game of cricket. It's not going to happen. And then all of a sudden, you're saying, look, as a cricketer, yep, sure, if we're playing right, I'm right into it. When does the actual mental build-up start to actually going, right, we're going to play a high-stakes game of cricket tonight?
You go through a huge different sets of emotions from the start of the day to the middle of the day to when you come to the ground, and obviously when you warm up and take the ground. But they'll get a sense of knowledge whether this is going to happen probably 10 to 15 minutes before we will all know. And as a player, you'll start to switch on. There'll be some chat. There'll be some inner chat between the players. There'll be some coaches start to mull around their players, getting instructions to switch on. And so that happens. I guess the difference between a park cricketer and the true professional is the park cricketer's probably already got his mind on going to the horse races later on in that day.
Absolutely.
Or doing something else with their time, whereas a true professional, this is their job. Their job is to perform at the highest level, and this is it. MCG on a Friday night against the arch rival, the English. That you want to get out there.
Yeah, it is, and it works like that. I mean, you go into sort of like a robot mode. You could be chilling, be not even thinking about cricket with all the rain coming down. You're talking all sorts of things with your teammates, and then suddenly you get a message saying, guys, we could be playing 8 overs game. Just like a robot, you switch on, you say, right, I've got a job to do. This is my job. This is what you do day in, day out. Some of these guys have been doing it for 10 years, 15 years. It's like clockwork.
And I guess cricket's a bit different than other ball sports, isn't it? Where you think about other games that are condensed in 2 hours, you're locked in for those 2 hours. Whereas as cricketers, I mean, sometimes you get told all the time, when you're batting, that look, you got to be able to switch on and switch off, even during long days of play, because it's impossible to concentrate so hard for 9 hours when you're playing long form cricket, for example. So cricketers, I guess, more than probably other athletes, are more used to that kind of thing than perhaps, say, footballers or whatever it may be. Corbin Middlemass alongside Ravi Bopara and Brad Hodge on Grandstand Cricket. Our former 3-form internationals, one from England and one from Australia, of course, as we count down to this blockbuster Group 1 clash. The toss has been delayed due to a wet outfield. The good news is the rain has stopped after showers for most of the day. Hodgie tells us that the first lining of cloud has started to move, so I'll take his word for it that is good news. And we're looking a little more, we're a little more optimistic here at the G that we will get some cricket. The next inspection is going to take place at 8:15 Australian Eastern Daylight Time, which is 25 minutes from now. Now, Ravi, you mentioned off air a little bit earlier, and I want to just blue sky this theory and we look ahead to tonight. Say the game does go ahead and it's a shortened game. First of all, who do you think that suits more? Does it suit England or Australia if the game's played over a smaller sample size? And the other thing that you mentioned to me off air is, and I hope you don't mind me bringing it up, is how each team will approach it at the toss. Will they actually go in with different personnel than what they otherwise would have if it was played over the full 20 overs?
Yes, I do think there will be different guys coming in, or should be anyway, because a 5 over game, I think we'll get more than 5 overs, by the way. I think we're looking at more sort of an 8 to 9 over game. I think there will be some changes, especially in the England squad or team. You got, sort of those 8 overs, those 9 overs are pretty much 9 death overs. So you need your specialists who bowl at the death. So the likes of Jordan might come in, Tamar Mills might come in, and the spinner may miss out. But I think if it's 8 to 9 overs, then Rashid, there's an option to play Rashid, because there's enough time in the game to get a spinner and over. However, if it goes to 5 overs, then I wouldn't risk bowling a spinner in that 5 overs. You'll go 5 quicks. You'd go down the route of Woody, Tamar Mills, Jordan, because they're all going to bowl 1 over each. Then you've got Sam Curran, and one more over you'd have to get probably from Ben Stokes. That'll be your 5 overs bowled there, and someone like Wokes you'll probably miss out, possibly. I think in this situation, you're not going to need as long a batting lineup either. How many batters are going to bat in 8 or 9 overs? Maybe 5 batters or 6 batters at worst. And the question about who does it suit most? I mean, there's some pretty good hitters in both sides, and I think with the dimension of the game and the batters we're looking at, I'd probably say England.
Yep. Hodgie, same 2 questions.
Yeah, firstly, I'd say Australia, only because they haven't beaten England in the last 10 to 12 games when all things have been equal. So
smaller sample size, more chance of an upset.
Yeah,
all of that.
So they might see this as an opportunity. I think England over 20 overs have been dominant against Australia, particularly their batting unit. It's been hard to stop. But again, 50-50 becomes down to a bit of a lottery, doesn't it, when it's less than sort of 10 overs. But it's going to, I tell you what, if we do see 10 overs, there'll be some amazing ball striking ability. Josh Butler, Liam Livingston, Ben Stokes, Marcus Stoinis might have to move up the order. They're the little things that you have to...
Salt might come into the team, and someone like Milan might miss out.
Yep.
But have you ever seen a 10 over game?
Not live.
Brilliant. Yeah. Honestly, it is fantastic to watch. There's an event every ball. Every ball is an event. You see the bowler at the top of his mark. He has to think about, because they're looking to hit every ball at the park. There is no in between. There is no building sort of phase or anything. It's 10 overs.
Doesn't this go to show, though, Ravi, that we are the Sesame Street generation? That all of us, everything's quick cuts. It's all sort of, my concentration span can last this long. Once upon a time, that was T20 cricket. T20 cricket came along, we thought, wow, what an amazing 3-hour product. Now the game takes 4 hours. And now we're thinking, you know what, T10's the way to go.
Well, it is a spectacle. It is great to watch. There is an event every ball. The batter's trying to hit pretty much 6 every ball. He wants 6 every ball, and then then the next best is 4. Whereas in T20 cricket, there's that little bit of building phase, which is brilliant as well, where there will be some singles here and there, still playing aggressively, but not with T10. It's, I'm hitting you out the park every ball, so you better make sure you're putting the ball where I can't hit you out the park. So it could be a wide Yorker 1 ball, and then the next ball could be a bouncer, and the next ball could be a leg stump Yorker. It could go wide Yorker again, or a slow ball into bit. It's a very unpredictable sort of format.
It's very baseball style, where batter's trying to hit a home run and the pitcher's trying to deliver something which he doesn't want. So instead of an on-speed ball, to be a change-up or that's the skill of it, which is pretty cool.
There's no settling in with 10 overs.
No.
In T20 cricket, sometimes you can get the bowler comes out and goes, I'll just start with a good length ball. in T10, your first ball, you can't just go, right, I'll just start off with a good length ball and ease myself into this. You can't. Because you bowl a length ball, which is, in the batter's wheelhouse.
It's a slot ball.
It's a slot ball. It's going out the park. He's not having a look at you. He's not going, right, let me just have a look at him here. There's none of that. I'm coming after you from ball one. You better get it right.
Yep. That's an exciting prospect of what may lay ahead. So we're about 20 minutes away from the next inspection here at the Melbourne Cricket Ground. The toss has been delayed due to a wet outfield. The Group 1 clash between Australia and England. Corbin Middlemass alongside former international cricketers Ravi Bopara and Brad Hodge, who represented their countries in all 3 formats of the game. The SMS number if you want to reach our commentary team tonight. If you're in Australia, the number is 0467 920 222. Meanwhile, if you're outside of Australia, the number is +61 467 920 222. Hodgie, the Australian team tonight. So we touched on the first part about suiting Australia. Do you anticipate changes then if they come back and say, look, this is a 9 or 10 over game?
I knew you were going to come back and ask me that question. I tried to deflect it as best as I can, but it didn't work.
Well, there's a certain Victorian who happens to be the captain, who opens the batting. I'm sure you played with at times in the back end of your career, Hodgie, who made 31 off 42 the other night and couldn't hit one out the middle. And now he may have to get going from ball one. His name is Aaron Finch.
Yeah, I reckon there's a really tough conversation that may have to happen with himself, actually, to see whether he's actually the best player to go out and do the job. He'll back himself. There's no doubt about it. Finch's confidence and courage is unquestionable. I'd love to say that, yeah, right now he's probably the person for the job, but I think that when you see Marcus Stoinis, who's in great touch, even Matthew Wade, Cameron Green will be one of those players which will come into the 11, I believe. And we saw how he hit them in India. Will that be an option to go to the top and possibly partner David Warner? I mean, there's no hiding behind the facts that Finch has even said that himself, that he's not hitting the ball the way he would like to. But you're only ever one shot away from being back in form, and maybe this moment might be the chance for a skipper to go, you know what, I've been under pressure here. I'm going to step up and get out there and pants this England attack all around the park. And that just might be the little click, that mindset that has switched and changes, because there is no thought process. As Ravi said, you're going to try and park every ball out of the ground. And do you know what? If there's anyone that can do that, it's the power of Aaron Finch. And that 156 from memory that he got at Hampshire back in the day, it's still there somewhere. It just haven't seen it in a while. What's that do to the team? Probably a little bit along with Ravi that Adam Zampa or Ashton Agar might fall out of favour. You might even consider a really rash selection and go Pat Cummins, sit this one out, and Kane Richardson come in for that exact reason of that Chris Jordan style, getting the job done, finishing it off just with one over spell. It's pretty radical, but the discussions will be happening. I do know in history, though, that Australia like to back the unit which has got them there and take them forward. They really make household changes. So they'll probably stick with what they know, trust and back the process, and hopefully it gets the job done.
It's been the big question all tournament whether Aaron Finch is still capable of being Aaron Finch. So he was that. He clearly looks like a diminished version of himself. I understand, particularly in cricket, where you get a chance to think so much of your game. It must be off-putting to have so much external noise. And there's sports guys like me out there sort of making these comments that I know people and cricketers themselves think it's almost disrespectful. That look at all the great things I've done, and all of that absolutely has been one of the best, if not the best, white ball batter that Australia have had. But we know at champions at the back end that they might be able to do it one more time. Kobe Bryant in his last game turns it on one more time, but it's the ability to do it sort of the next day and the next day and the next day throughout the tournament. And it really stood out the other night. And it actually felt almost painful at times to watch him out there trying to scratch around and find his best form, but he's going to lead Australia into action tonight. More on all of that in just a moment. Corbin Middlemass, Ravi Bopara and Brad Hodge at the Melbourne Cricket Ground. The news here is that the toss has been delayed due to a wet outfield. The good news is The ground staff have done an excellent job at preparing the playing surface, and there is another inspection due in 15 minutes' time. So the umpires will be back out in the middle. Hopefully then we'll know when they'll put the coin into the air for the toss. The teams will come through, and then we may even have the first ball of the day. All of that ahead of us, Australia and England to come from the Melbourne Cricket Ground.
And thanks to Corbin. We'll be back with Corbin in 5 minutes' time. You're listening to 5 Sports Extra and BBC Sounds. This is Adam Mountford. I'm just next door to the commentary box, just whilst our ABC listeners in Australia have the news. We're just going to chat through that. I'm here with Matt Henry from the BBC Sport website, who's writing on this game. You can follow his reports throughout this tournament, and including all sorts of information about what's going on, also working alongside Matthew Wade on a column. Interesting to see what happens in that. Matt, just before we talk about that, there's a lot of discussion. People switching on at 10 a.m. in the morning to 5 Sports Extra BBC Sounds are thinking, okay, if this becomes a shortened match, what does it mean? It might be a lottery because the stakes are pretty high, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, we kind of think whoever loses this game is going to be not definitely out, but in a lot of trouble. So it's up for debate whether you want a 5-over slog to decide or settle that in a global event, but we'll see. Who knows whether we're going to get out there. It's looking iffy, but hasn't rained for a while, and the umpires are coming back out in a bit. So
yeah, very difficult decision, because just look at the games that these teams have got, because that's what's important in some ways. So if this game is abandoned, England could go through if they beat Sri Lanka and New Zealand being their next game. Australia have got easier games, but their run rate isn't as high. So I don't know which side's sort of happier, as it were.
Yeah, that's the balance. The tricky balance is, do you want to be England, who, if this game is washed out, will be one of the many teams on 3 points, and to get through, they're going to have to finish ahead of Australia and a couple of others? Would you rather be the team who have ahead on net run rate as it stands, but with harder, and we say harder in inverted commas because we've seen what happened with Ireland, with harder games, or would you rather be Australia, who have the easier, again in inverted commas, games against Ireland, Afghanistan, and can make up the net run rate? But the crucial thing as well is that England play Sri Lanka last in the group, so they will know what they need to do, assuming they beat New Zealand, which is a big if again. They will know what the equation is on net run rate.
Now, you're always looking for a story, Matt. That's part of your job, of course, and you've got a story that feels like it's ready to be written, with England playing Sri Lanka for a chance to go through, because Sri Lanka are coached by
Chris Silverwood, who most listeners will know was England coach until the Ashes went badly wrong last winter. And would he like to knock England out of the World Cup? I mean, I wouldn't want to put words in his mouth, but you'd think so, yes.
So plenty of stories to enjoy. I mentioned, though, that you're working alongside Matthew Wade on a column. The first one was out just a few days ago. There's been a few complications with the next column for obvious reasons. Just tell us what we know and what it's been like working with Matthew.
Yeah, so it's been good fun. We are writing a column with him for the tournament. And then we got wind yesterday afternoon when we were looking to do a column ahead of this game. That was the plan. And he's gone down with COVID. So that was knocked on the head, and we got wind of this story, and he's here, we think. We have seen pictures of him here with a mask on. Competition rules allow him to play. We saw Adam Zampa was left out of the team when he tested positive earlier in the week, but that was a team decision that they didn't think he was fit enough to get through the game. The hint is that Wade will be. We heard he only had minor sort of symptoms yesterday. I think it was a mild headache, I think we can say. So he's going to give it a go, it looks like, if we get on the field.
So you've got the Matthew Wade column to enjoy on the website. You've got, obviously, the text commentary that follows all these matches. And we should also say you've got in-play video clips as well. And my word, there's been some good stories over the last few days. Last night or yesterday afternoon, UK time, Zimbabwe, Pakistan. You know, there's plenty of clips to look out for on that website, aren't there, Matt?
Yeah, what was that, about 1 a.m., 1:30 our time? That all was finishing off. I mean, it's been a brilliant tournament. I don't think anyone can deny that. Even with the weather that we've had here, we have been stuck in the rain and away from some of the stories over the last few days. But India-Pakistan here on Sunday night was one of the best, if not the best, occasion I've ever been at a sporting event. So that was brilliant. And we've seen the shocks of Ireland and Scotland, West Indies going out. It's been frustrating the last few days, but otherwise really good fun.
So what you need to do is get onto that BBC Sport website and app, because Matt is working, as I speak, writing those words that will be appearing. Whether he's got a 5-over thrash to write about, or whether he's got anything else. Just briefly, if there is a 5-over game, or even more than that, do we expect England to make a few changes, you think?
Well, it's a good question. Again, Phil Salt would be one who would probably come into the thinking. We've got, as it stands, Dawid Malan at number 3, who looked in not the best of form the other day here, and he's not one who you would back in a 5-over slugfest to get out there and score quick runs, whereas Phil Salt sat on the sidelines. Could you just get him in if it's 5 overs? Do you need a spinner in Adil Rashid? Possibly not. Moeen Ali will play. And a change of the batting order as well. I mean, Liam Livingstone would be wasted down at 6 in a 5-over game. Let's get him up there and get the runs on the board, I guess.
Well, we'll find out very soon. The inspection, to remind you, is just 10 minutes away, and we just don't know which way it's going to go, to be honest. The captain didn't look desperate to play, wouldn't have thought, but there's supposedly 60,000 people on their way. I'm not sure they're here yet. They're desperate to see a game, and, they want to see some cricket, and that's what we're here for. So I really don't know what's going to happen, but you'll find out here on Test Match Special over the next few minutes. 5 Sports Extra, BBC Sounds. Remember, every ball of every game is live throughout this tournament. You'll be able to follow. Look on the BBC Sport website, and you'll find there the times of the games. They're a bit funny the next few days. A couple of days with just one game. We ourselves head off to Brisbane next. We've got a team in Sydney at the moment who are doing games there. There's matches to come in Adelaide and Perth and everything else. So lots of different times and lots of different games. But keep checking that BBC Sport website and app, and you'll find the timings, and you can also listen back as well. But talking about listening back, you can now listen live again to our coverage. I can go next door, and Corbyn's with Ravi Bopara and Brad Hodge. Here's Corbyn.
This is greatness uninhibited from Virat Kohli.
I honestly have no words. I have no idea how that happened.
The T20 World Cup.
Push to the offside for 4. What a shot. What a way to win the game. What an inning.
Tip and run on the offside this time, and there's the century for Riley Rasowi. 2nd century of his career.
What a knock.
Tries again, gives it air to Stoinis. 6 more! A towering blow from Marcus Stoinis.
The T20 Cricket World Cup.
Australia versus England.
That doesn't get much bigger than MCG with a full house with a lot on the line.
At some point in this tournament, you're in must-win games. Already a big occasion. It takes on that extra bit now with both teams having lost one game.
Your home of cricket.
ABC
Sport.
The home of cricket.
Welcome to the 2022 T20 Cricket World Cup on the ABC Listen app, ABC Sport Digital, and across the BBC.
And a chance tonight to keep your own fate in your own hands. That's what lies ahead of both England and Australia tonight. For the loser, well, mounting pressure of facing an early elimination from the 2022 T20 World Cup. Welcome back to the Melbourne Cricket Ground. The crowd is slowly filling up. We think around 35,000 in the house, at least visible at this stage for Australia and England. The start has been delayed. The first ball was meant to be bowled over an hour ago. That didn't happen due to inclement weather. The toss has been delayed due to a wet outfield. But the good news is the ground staff have done an excellent job at preparing the playing arena. The roller is going up and down the pitch as we speak. They are still doing a little bit of small work to various parts of the outfield, but the ground staff pretty happy with the way they have presented the ground, and they will show it off to the 2 umpires in 7 minutes from now. So that is the next inspection to take place at 8:15 p.m. Following that, we'll get a time for the toss, and thereafter the first ball of the contest and what is going to be a reduced game. We won't get a full 20 overs for both teams, but it will certainly count towards Group 1 and the standings. Huge night ahead of us. Corbyn Middlemass alongside internationals in all 3 formats of the game, Brad Hodge and Ravi Bopara at the Melbourne Cricket Ground. We haven't seen too much activity. Alex Hales, one of your former teammates, though, Ravi, has spent plenty of time out in the middle while most of the players are back in the dressing room and fully kitted up, by the way. He is in the full playing strip with the red shirt on and the blue trousers and his red hat backwards and just hanging out with the ground stuff out in the middle.
Yeah, and that's typical of Alex Hales. He can't sit still, Alex Hales. He needs to be entertained all the time. He needs to be doing something. He can't sit still unless he's got his laptop with him and he's watching Netflix or something like that. He has to be doing something. He's walking around, look at his stomping, turning his hat forward and then back and all sorts. But he's that sort of character where, he likes to be entertained. He likes to entertain as well. Great to be around, great company. And I like him. He's a good man to be around. Most people, you'd enjoy him.
Yeah?
Yeah, very funny man.
Plenty of energy.
plenty of energy. Good sense of humour as well.
We like that. So we don't have any news on the teams as yet, Hodgie, but the one thing that we do know is Matthew Wade is here. Now, he was in some doubt given the fact he was COVID positive yesterday. He did not participate in the team's practice session, but he was here wearing his N95 mask, so fully covered. He's separated from the rest of the team, but he's expected to play despite being COVID positive, which we have seen in this tournament so far. George Dockrell from Ireland played 2 games while being COVID positive, and Adam Zampa, who missed the game on Wednesday with the same symptoms, he's expected to come back into the Australian team tonight.
Well, that's good news. Saw Adam Zampa down underneath, and Adam said, actually, it might have been Richo, actually. Kane Richardson said that Matty Wade's taken this nice antibiotic and he's feeling absolutely fine. So he's ready to go. So good news for Australia, good news for Matty Wade. So no symptoms. He's feeling fine, just doing the right thing by the rest of the group and the team and the safety precautions. But also, I mean, the one thing is, if he actually is feeling a fraction off, is that game will be reduced, so his workload will be down. But hopefully it won't affect him. No, that's a good sign there. We heard on an interview earlier about Glenn Maxwell taking a few catches with the gloves, which wouldn't be ideal. But that's just the person which sprung to mind, which could possibly open the batting as well. Glenn Maxwell, be interesting to watch. So yeah, it's you can sort of start to feel the preparations around the ground. You know that there's a chance or the game will start when you're actually getting the broadcast booths put out on the ground and start to see a few things happening that should suggest that a game might happen. But it's awfully exciting. This is going to be an unbelievable game of cricket when it does start.
Alim Dar is the 4th umpire, so it's his unfortunate job to essentially stand out in the middle while it rains during rain delays. It's not raining at the moment, but he does have his umbrella with him.
He's been out there for about 3 hours.
He's just poking the umbrella at certain, almost like a golfer trying to replace some divots, sort of pressing the end of the umbrella into the soft surface. And the PA announcers are now trying to rev up the crowd that are in. Obviously, they're waiting for this next inspection, which is due in 3 minutes from now. Corbin Middlemass, Ravi Bopara and Brad Hodge on Grandstand Cricket through the ABC and BBC networks. Now, if the SMS, I mentioned this number earlier, 0467 920 222. First of all, from our statsman, Rick Finlay, we love some numbers. As far as I can work out, 5 previous World Cups in Australia, all held in the new year. 121 matches scheduled, 3 washouts. From the previous 121 World Cup games played in Australia, 2 at the SCG, 1 at the Gabba, plus another 2 where not enough play was able to constitute a result. So as a result, the games in Mackay and in Adelaide. So that's 1 in every 24 matches. This time, with the World Cup pre-Christmas, obviously held during the spring here, 3, maybe 4 out of 26 have been washed out. So that's a bad start statistically for the spring months in Australia when it comes to the sport of cricket. Off the SMS, Rachel says after the BBL final where the Sixers won after a week full of rain, including the day of the game where they still somehow managed to get a game in, nothing is impossible.
Yeah, I remember that clearly. So good pick up there, Rachel. There was no chance of that game actually going ahead, and it ended up being a beauty. So yeah, good spectacle. From memory, they got about 14 overs in, I think. Yep. So yes, good point there, Rachel. I got no doubt this will happen. There's just a sense and a feeling that, anticipation is building from the crowd. Even the players being out there kicking around the football is actually a good sign. So there's Liam Livingston, I think it is, Sam Curran as well. So they've got the rugby style ball, and they're trying to kick a few Aussie style balls, and did a pretty good job, Liam Livingston. So, Sam Curran needs a bit of work, doesn't he? It's a pretty shanky attempt at a torpedo there, but I like what I see from Liam Livingston. He's got a future here.
Yeah. It's not his shape ball, I don't think, for Sam Curran. Rod in Lake Macquarie off the SMS. Why don't they put tarps over the whole ground? Then the ground is not wet. Obviously, we do see that in parts of the world.
India, yes.
India,
Sri Lanka.
Especially in Sri Lanka, because of the monsoons.
Yep.
You get in Sri Lanka. They are absolutely rapid at putting the covers on. The only thing with that is you need about 60 ground staff on a normal ground. On here, you're going to need about 400 ground staff to cover this place up. You're going to need a ridiculous amount of covers to cover it all up.
Is it effective?
Yes, it is. It's very effective. During the monsoons, I remember us playing a test match out in Sri Lanka, and it was absolutely pouring down. It was pouring down. I said, no chance. We got no chance here. And these guys just came out. They brought these covers out. Within 5 minutes, the whole ground was covered. And we were not in a good place because we were losing the test match. We needed the rain to save us, and they've just covered the whole ground. And then once it stopped, they just picked them up like that. Off you go, right? Go and play. And then they obviously trounced us as well. Won the test match.
Jeez, that's so great service for the ground, but less so if you're praying for rain and an early finish. Sam Curran, Liam Livingston and Alex Hales continue to kick the rugby ball around, and we've got sight of the two umpires decked out in their pink jackets, their black pants, in Joel Wilson from Trinidad and Tobago alongside him. The Kiwi umpire actually played for the Cook Islands in Chris Brown alongside him. They're going to link up with Alim Dar in the middle, and they're going to have a chat about the condition of the ground. So this is the important conversation here at 15 minutes past 8. And I was interested to see they had a companion on their way out to the middle as well. It was the Australian captain, Aaron Finch, who was having a chat to the two umpires as they made their way back out to the middle. And now Aaron Finch is out there as well to have a look for himself. Hodgie, is he an inquisitive guy?
No, not really. He's a pretty chilled, relaxed dude, Aaron Finch. The umpires are just running around the ground, stomping in areas, which is not going to help. I mean, let's be honest, conditions are not going to be ideal. They're not going to be what they need to be for a completely even professional sport game. But from the naked eye, from what I can see, it looks fit and fair enough to play. And hopefully these umpires are looking and going, you know what, ground staff have done an incredible job to get this up, which is probably, I don't know, from the naked eye, 80% to what it should be.
Well, they have stopped working on different pockets, haven't they? So earlier we saw them with the Super Sopper trying to work on different spots on the outfield, whereas the ground staff almost left it 10 minutes ago thinking, look, it's in pretty good nick. It's up to the umpires now whether we play or not. They've really given no indication to the people that are here, so we think somewhere upwards of 30,000, maybe even more than that, inside the MCG, which we were expecting around 60,000 at the start of the day. Obviously, the weather has kept a few away at least for the time being, but it would be one hell of a tease if all of a sudden they turn around now and say, look, by the way, the ground isn't in the condition we need it to be to play a game of international cricket.
And that would be an absolute hammer blow, especially when they've got us all excited about the game now, especially with it being shortened as well. It's going to be fireworks. But to be honest, I don't think it'll be a high-scoring game, even if it's 5 overs or 10 overs. I think it'll be quite a low-scoring 5 over 10 over game, just because I think there's going to be a lot of movement in the pitch, which is going to make it difficult to hit the ball if you're just swinging. Because it's such a big ground as well, there'll be guys coming in who are not even set, trying to hit the ball out the park, miss-hitting it, getting out. In my opinion, it'll be a low-scoring game. But in terms of getting it called off, they're just walking around certain areas. Usually where water settles when it rains on cricket grounds is just off the square. And that's where they're walking around. They've looked like they've showed a little bit of concern in certain areas, but I reckon they just got to get on with it. Just got to play.
You will find areas which you'll go, it's not suitable, and you can either look at it as a optimistic view or a pessimistic view. So Alim Dar's body language to me looks like the one which is sort of dictating terms to say that it's not suitable. But again,
this is your body language read, Hodgie, of what Alim Dar's saying.
Well, I'd love to say that I'm an expert in that as well, Corbin, but I'm not. But
I like it.
And I'm only going off what Alim Dar said probably 5 hours ago, and said that there's no chance of a game in the evening. Now, they're just at the run-up. What you need, what's important is actually the bowlers' run-ups. And that's it. Because you can pick out any other area. The likelihood of the other 10 players being in that one spot for a long period of time is slim, right? but you are gonna motion up and down that line towards the popping crease consistently, and that's the only thing you're worried about is the fast bowlers.
So incentives clearly shape behaviours. I mean, you don't have to be sort of twirling your moustache to think that this benefits me, but clearly as three broadcasters, we've been here all day, we want to see some cricket. We've come this far, we want to see the game today between England and Australia, whereas it's clearly the job of the umpires to follow the right protocols and obviously protect the safety of the players. What are so you're talking about the run-ups in particular, but what are some of the key dangers that are going to be ever present here, given the fact that we've had rain all day that I guess we otherwise wouldn't have?
I think Hodgie touched on it about the bowlers' run-ups. That's the most important bit because the boots get wet, they get slippery underneath, and especially if you're landing on a hard surface, the bowler could go and the feet could go underneath him, and he could get badly injured. Having said that, I think most of the bowlers have probably already changed their spikes, put the long ones on. And I think Woody was mentioning the other night against Ireland that they were slipping at the crease and that they got to put their long spikes on. That was on a relatively dry day, so it'll be a lot more wet. Now they obviously don't want to damage the field either. There's some more games to be played here in the tournament. They want to damage certain parts of the ground. Except apart from that, there's not many other dangers apart from you don't want the ball to be soaking wet, obviously. Yeah. Because it's not fair for bowlers to be bowling with a soaking wet ball. But I can't see many other dangers, to be honest. I just can't. Apart from the bowlers' run-ups, there's nothing else.
No, I mean, injuries can happen when you dive around the field anytime, whether it's actually wet or not. So it is really those bowlers that run up and do a takeoff and land, which is the scary part.
So this is the key conversation that's been had here. So after the chat with Alim Dar, the two umpires in Joel Wilson and Chris Brown have left the centre square and they've walked over to meet the two captains who are still dressed in their training kits. In Aaron Finch, he's got the shorts on, true Victorian, and Joss Butler is there with him as well in his tracksuit with his long-sleeved England training shirt on, chatting to the umpires at the moment. It looks like the umpires are the ones doing a lot of the talking as both Finch and Butler listen in to what's being said here. So, Hodgie, you don't sound as optimistic as you were before that visit to the middle.
I'm looking at Aaron Finch's face and Joss Butler's face. And it doesn't look to be a lot of, well, let's get into it. It looks to be, okay, understand what you got to say.
It almost looks like the umpires are making an excuse not to play it and trying to really explain it.
That's what it looks like, doesn't it, Ravi?
Because if they were going to play, they would have just walked up and said, guys, we're playing. We're playing.
Yeah, and it doesn't look like either Aaron Finch or Joss Butler are trying to change their minds or have much to say back. Aaron Finch is covering his mouth now as he mutters a few words to the umpires and to Joss Butler. And there's also the pressure of millions of eyeballs around the world and also about 40,000 or just under perhaps in the house here at the MCG, and the crowd that have turned up desperate to see a game of cricket with high consequence here.
I think you'd be disappointed actually if you were the ground staff and you made this tremendous effort and you got it up to a substantial position where it's at, which looks fit. As we said, nothing's going to be perfect. We've had way too much rain for it to be perfect, but it's stopped raining now. If this was another T20 game, if this was a Big Bash game, you'd probably get out there and play. Maybe 100 game, but there's probably a little bit more at stake, no doubt.
Well, they haven't shook hands or anything. I mean, they've had a chat and walked away. Maybe there's going to be a further inspection by the looks of it. Why don't they get the helicopters in?
Yes, let's get your helicopter, Ravi.
I mean, in the PSL, I remember the PSL. Sorry, it was the Pakistan Cricket Super League.
Yeah, you got transported in.
Yeah, the helicopters came down because it was, the forecast was terrible. It was raining, but they had to play the semi-final in Pakistan. It was the first time cricket was back in Pakistan.
Which city?
Major cricket.
Which city was it in?
This was in Lahore. Right. And all you saw were these helicopters, a couple of helicopters coming in, flying in over the top from the ground, came into the stadium like that. And they dried the outfield in minutes, these helicopters. And can they not do that here?
I don't know. There's some big players next door that might have access to a helicopter. There's Michael Clark. There's Nasser Hussain. There's who else? Adam Gilchrist. I reckon he'd been in a few
Nasser
helicopters.
Hussain don't like spending his money, so
Doesn't he?
you're not going to get one from him.
Is yours parked too far from the ground, Hodgie? Is that what you're telling us?
No. I drive. I don't need to fly. Actually, I plan to get my pilot's license. Actually, Corbin. We'll talk about that another time.
I'll leave you in the capable hands of Jonathan Agnew. So Australia and England, the umpires have just visited to the middle. Have you got some news for us?
Well, I think so. There's another inspection at 10:02. So 25 minutes from now, they're going to come out and have another look. It's very interesting, isn't it, trying to work out what these conversations could possibly be. But clearly, no one is happy that this is fit, or they'd be playing, because I don't see, and we said it the last time, what's going to improve in 25 minutes on the dark skies and the floodlights on. I suppose neither captain. There's a lot on this. Do you really want to go out effectively of the World Cup? I mean, not definitely, but probably. If you were the captain of England or Australia, do you want to get knocked out of the World Cup by losing a 5-over thrash in the mud? I mean, that's what it could come down to. What's the bigger picture from the administrators to have the home team possibly knocked out in the mud halfway through the tournament? I mean, there's a lot at stake, and it clearly isn't as fit as they would like. I think you're right, Brad. Had it been a 100 or a big bash, they get out there and play with this sort of crowd, definitely. But this is it's a World Cup, and the captains will both be mindful of their own positions, of course, and Australia with Ireland and Afghanistan to come, and work needed to do to their net run rate. England, New Zealand and Sri Lanka, so definitely two tougher matches, but that last game, Sri Lanka, is the final match in the group, so they know what they would have to do. In other words, if they beat New Zealand, they would know up against Sri Lanka that they might have to win the game in 17 overs or 18 overs or something like that, so they have a little bit of an advantage there as well. But it's a shame, isn't it? No one's really got the answer for rain and cricket, although, as Corbin was saying, how far away is that lovely stadium over there with the roof on top?
Yeah, Marvel Stadium.
100 yards?
No,
200 yards?
Yeah, it's about it's 6 kilometres, I think.
6 kilometres.
Maybe less.
Yeah. Just over the road, more or less, in Australian terms.
It's where Hodgie's helicopter's parked.
Well, I'm just looking at the radar, and that's the next inspection. This is the problem they've got. There's going to be an increasingly angry crowd of people here. I mean, it hasn't rained now for about an hour and a half, I would think, probably, about that. And all the work that the crowd can see going on out there, the players have been milling about. They haven't been practicing, they haven't been doing any warm-ups, but they've been messing around with their rugby ball and so on, just to fill in time.
Well, Aggers, I just want to ask a question. What is actually 20 minutes going to do? Because the ground staff for the last half an hour haven't done a thing.
No.
So does that mean they have to go get sawdust or more soil or fertiliser or whatever they're putting out there to put on? Is it like that's the thing which the crowd find frustrating?
Of course,
there's no answer.
No, there isn't any answer, and it goes back to the point. I mean, what is going to change? I'm intrigued by this chap with his lawnmower.
Yeah, what's he doing?
I don't know. It's not a big one. It's a little push lawnmower, and I don't know what he's doing with that.
Probably to give Elim Dar a haircut, because that's what you need to cut that roof on, haven't you?
He's got a lot on. All I can think of is sort of creating some sort of wind that gives with the blades going round over the grass. But why would you have a lawnmower out there? But anyway, he's brought it out. He's obviously pleased with it, and it's parked up by the tractor. But again, it's not being used, and nobody is doing anything apart from the fellow driving the heavy roller, and he's been doing that for a while. I mean, he's rolling that pitch, absolutely flattening it out. So that's all that's happening, and it's hard to see how anything is going to change. If they come out at 10-2 and at 5-2 say this match is off, I think there's going to be a lot of upset people here. We was making the point at the start that I really think there needs to be a bit more communication, certainly some more honesty. And if anyone's bought tickets to come here this evening, they should have been told, look, this ground is saturated. There's a very good chance that there won't be a game. But, of course, lots of people have bought tickets in advance and they're here. And what they've seen out there, they're expecting to see some cricket. And we all want to see some cricket. But you also don't want to see somebody do a horrible injury. I've still got horrible bad memories of Daryl Simon Jones at the Gabba doing an injury, a career-wrecking injury there with his knee. I mean, you don't want to see that either. So there has to be some sense in this. It's a T20 game. People are throwing themselves around, diving and so on. So the umpires are mindful. They've got to be responsible for that. Their decision, could affect a player. So there's a lot for them to consider. It's not as easy as just turning up and say we'll go and play. Alim Dar is standing there, arms behind his back. He's talking to somebody. Again, he's not really up to much. He's already located his areas there that he knows are dangerous. And we've got a second lawnmower out there now. What's he mowing?
I have no idea. Well, the point is, if the umpires have said that it's not quite fit, then what's the instruction to the umpires to actually make it fit then? Because it can't be time, because there's no sun to actually dry it out.
No. I just wonder if that lawnmower is something to do with the process. I mean, it's a sort of mower that it's not self-propelled. It's just a sort of mower that you see somebody mowing a fairly small lawn with, and it's there. It's now parked, but oh, hang on, it's moving it again now.
I don't think it's a lawnmower. I think it's a spike. It's got spikes on the bottom of it to spike the ground.
I think it's sort of an aerator. It's got a grass collector on the back. Perhaps it's something that tears moss out or something. I don't know. But he moved it there and then left it. I don't know what's up there. The fertiliser distributors are parked as well. They've done all they can with those. They're parked up by a wheelbarrow that's also redundant. All this kit, all this paraphernalia, it's going to take a long while for the ground staff to put it all away this evening. It's a tractor, another fertiliser spreader to the left-hand side. And the crowd, well, they're pretty patient at the moment. I noticed some Afghanistan supporters are still down there waving. Well, they've switched their Afghan flag for an Australian one now. They were waving an Afghan flag earlier, and of course that was washed out. So they've remained, which is great, and they're way down at the far end. This famous old stadium. There's a couple down here who are wrapped up, looking like they're going trawler fishing on the North Sea. Bright orange, I think he's wearing, head to toe, with his hood on, and she's wearing a sort of lime green one as well. All the way from top to toe, a sort of padded thermal outfit it appears to be. It's not Melbourne on the approach of November, is it?
It's not pleasant, no. It's it feels like a wintry day which you come and watch the AFL in the middle of July.
Melbourne Cup next week, though. Right?
Yeah,
I mean, the whole country comes to a standstill.
Yeah, it's Derby Day tomorrow, Melbourne Cup Tuesday, Oaks Day Thursday. So there'll be a lot of stilettos getting stuck into the turf at the moment, Aggers, when you're trying to walk through the members' pavilion for sure.
Yes.
So, not ideal for the ladies when they get dressed up for the races.
I'd love to go to the Melbourne Cup. We're not going to be here, unfortunately. When we come for the Ashes, we're often around for the Melbourne Cup. We're never in Melbourne at the time. We're somewhere else. But in Perth, of course, it's a sort of big breakfast, and everyone dresses up, and because of the time difference.
Yep.
Elsewhere, I remember stopping at we were driving to Port Pirie, I think it was, in South Australia, and we'd chosen to drive for some reason, quite a long drive, and off we went, and we came across like a very remote pub, just in the middle of nowhere,
right
on the side of the road. And I was with Peter Baxter. He said, I think the Melbourne Cup's on us. I said, well, shall we go in? So we went into this pub, and there were a few locals in there having a 4X or something, and then we watched the Melbourne Cup in with these local South Australians, and we didn't have a clue who was running, and then we continued our journey. So it's been that sort of encounter really with the Melbourne Cup, but it must be a great day out.
It's a special event. We actually played a Sheffield Shield match at the MCG right here between Full Strength New South Wales and a Full Strength Victoria, and the Melbourne Cup was on. Mark Waugh was actually at the crease, and
he'll be distracted.
Well, we had to stop the game. And so the game stopped for 5 minutes while we watched the great race on the scoreboard. They put it on the scoreboard for us. We watched it and then carried on after it.
Oh, that's
pretty special.
That's the impact of the Melbourne Cup in Australia, isn't it? But no way Mark Walker back with that going on.
No chance. No. We thought it was a good chance to get him out.
Now Ravi, sharp-eyed as he is, which is why he's still playing T20 cricket and so on, has spotted that there's some light rain coming down. And you're right, Ravi, there is. I can see in the darkness of the stands at the far end. And then umpire Dar quickly, as we mentioned earlier, the umbrella's up. And that could well finish it, I'm afraid. And spectators are retreating. It's not heavy rain, but if all those covers have to come on again, then there really will be no prospect of play.
Yeah, it's very light, drizzle low.
Yeah.
Lizzle, is that it, Ravi?
It's lizzle.
Lizzle. It's very, like, it's actually... doesn't even look like it's coming to the surface. It just looks like it's hanging in the air.
It's just dank, isn't it?
They haven't raced to put the Hessian on.
Not yet, but I think they're moving in that direction. There's a couple there. It's still sort of wrapped up, ready to go. And, one or two are looking skywards. They won't see much there because it's absolutely black. But umpire Dar's got his umbrella up, and one or two of the ground staff there have got their hoods up now. It's just such a sad sight.
What a horrible, frustrating day.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. It really is. And still he's chugging up and down with his roller, determined to roll every bit of life out of that. If you're just joining us, well, we're all pretty frustrated. Everyone will be frustrated about this because it should have been one of the highlights of this tournament, and particularly so with both teams, Australia and England, having lost, and therefore really having to win today. It's a crucial game in this tournament, and it's heading towards 1 point each unless this shower can blow away quickly. It is very, very light, but we've already lost Ireland, Afghanistan today. That was a complete washout. And so this table in this particular group has New Zealand at the top, with Ireland in second place with 3 points from their 3 games. Sri Lanka in at third place. They've still got to play New Zealand to level it up. And then comes England in fourth, Australia in fifth. They've got 2 points. And Afghanistan have got 2 points as well, but they've played 3 games, 2 of which of course were washed out. So they've had some really bad luck. Mr. Dar's put his umbrella down, which is again a good sign. He's marching off to that area again that he's been really quite absorbed by. Just if the batsman were down at this end, it's sort of extra cover mid-off inside the circle. I mean, it's quite a key part of the territory there, and this is what matters. I mean, no one's really too concerned about what happens beyond, but it's within the circle, and that's where the umpires really will be focusing their attention when they come out again in just over 5 minutes from now. But Mr. Dar again is going round poking about. We know that England, despite that defeat to Ireland, were going to be unchanged, although the shorter the game, the more likely it is that there will be changes. Australia, we haven't had, I don't think, any official confirmation that Matthew Wade will play. He's got COVID. And Adam Zampa, we think, has now recovered from COVID, but he's had that as well. So there is COVID in the camp as far as the Australians are concerned. But they might make a change or two. Cameron White could well come into their team again if we do get a reduced game here. Ravi, is it still raining?
No, it's sort of it's very, very light. I don't think it's hitting the surface. It's so high up. You can only see it in the lights, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think it's heavy enough really to hit the ground and make any difference.
Good. Well, that seems to have blown through. There's one or two patches on the radar, but very, very light indeed. So we'll just sit and wait. The umpires will come out again. But I just wonder if they were to call it off, with all these people in expectant and waiting, it's going to be very badly received. It's an Indian flag flying down there. You've got the wrong night. So he's got his full Indian gear on, bless him. He's got his flag, he's got his Indian top, and he's flying it belligerently down there. But perhaps he's remained here. He just simply hasn't gone home from the other night. He's still celebrating.
Still celebrating from the other night. Don't blame him.
No, it was a remarkable evening, wasn't it? I mean, we're so lucky to see those games, and you can't help but reflect on what a shame it is that they only get to meet in those ICC games, and that they can't grasp the nettle and just get on and play. Have you been catching up with because you've got lots of mates, haven't you, Ravi? I've been establishing that over the last few days or so in all the camps, actually, from Zimbabwe onwards. Have you had much reaction from Pakistan players and Indian players about that night?
Well, a little bit from the Pakistani players. From some of them are devastated, absolutely devastated.
Yeah.
Well,
they should have won that game.
They were devastated from the India game, and then last night was even worse.
Yeah.
Some of them, are really struggling, and I'm sure a few of them have looked at the social media and seen some of the comments that have been made, and it's a nightmare, really. And sadly, it's just a game of cricket at the end of the day. It's not about life and death. It's a game of cricket, and you win them, you lose them.
Yeah.
You haven't got a right to win every game. You're out there competing. It's 50-50 when you walk out there. It's a difficult one to take.
Rain blowing in. You can definitely see that, and that I think is heavy enough, surely, for the ground staff to have to do something, because it's sweeping in on the breeze. Again, it's probably not going to last very long, but it's just a question if they have to get all their stuff out, and all this very light rain, of course, is clearly landing on the grass, so it's going to make it all damp again. So the work that's being done, at least on the surface, is being undone here. And Mr. Dar, I can see up it goes. The umbrella's back up again, red and white, and he's pacing about. But still, they're resisting putting the cover on. Or I see the Zinger bales are now on the ground at this end, so maybe they're uprooting the stumps and they're going to have to do something. But it just hasn't gone away. That's the trouble. Anyway, he's finished rolling, so the pitch is good to go, and it's the same one that was used for the Ireland-England game, which had plenty in it, actually. I mean, lots of life in it. It'd be interesting to see. There's some fast bowlers on display in this game on both sides, and I know if it's a 5-over game or something, you just fully bowl differently. But if it were a full-length game or a 50 overs match, a white ball could be a bit nasty to face early on.
I think it would still be nasty from Mark Wood or Mitchell Stark if they bang one in halfway down the wicket. There's nothing good about that. Anytime you're up above 150, it's scary.
This is it. I'm afraid the mat is coming on now. They're going to have to. The rain is swirling round in the floodlights, and the crowd won't like this. But it's inevitable, I'm afraid. Many of them are heading for cover anyway. So the matting goes on, that big brown mat, laid back over the pitch again, under the watchful eye of Mr. Dar under his umbrella. The umpires are due out in a couple of minutes, and well, if it's still like this, then you feel that would have to be curtains, I think. It's taken a certain amount of persuasion, I think, for them to get this far, because clearly it's borderline to be positive about the conditions out there. Now the plastic sheet's going on, so poor old ground staff. They work so hard, and it's horrible when you get the situation where they've done everything, all that they can. They say to the umpires, I will be in, or would have been in a couple of minutes' time, there you go. And then suddenly you get this coming, just with literally 2 minutes to go before the inspection is made. And all that hard work is undone. And it will be. The rain is still sweeping in. It's still light, and it is still swirling in the wind, but it's wet.
I think this is the end of it. This is hard enough now, where it's coming down. This is definitely going to affect the ground now, because they'll have to bring the bigger covers on, which will again take time to get back off, and then they'll have to do some more super soak.
I mean, technically, there's still an hour to go, until a cut-off of 5 overs per side.
Yeah.
Although it seems as if we've been here a very long time, and well, indeed we have, but there is still an hour available to get a 5 overs per side match in.
Yeah, I think they'll give that every opportunity as well. Good indication of how hard it is, or how heavy the drizzle is by the crowd. They started to just move underneath the grandstand. They've been sitting out in the open air, and you can just see the families just packing up, grabbing the chips, grabbing the drinks, and just sort of shuffling up underneath covers. So not ideal.
Well, I'm assuming the umpires will still come out as scheduled. Now the tractor's coming back, and so the big sheets therefore will be unravelled again. All that time they took to wrap them up. It's like they're too graphic. It's like an enormous toilet roll, basically. And it's wrapped round like that, so you sort of pull it off. You pull it off the roll, and lay it out. It's a very clever piece of kit. Around it goes. Umpire Dar again watching there. He keeps his distance. He's usually about 10 yards away. And now they roll it out. There it goes, off the roll. It's like the advert at home for a certain toilet paper where the naughty Labrador puppy's running off with it. Do you have that one here, Brad, or not?
I reckon we've seen it. Yeah,
It's one of the favourite adverts in England.
Yeah,
isn't
it is. You get a new Labrador puppy every time. Each one's cuter than the one before. But it looks like that anyway. So now it's off, fully off the roll, and they'll run it out over the main sheet. Good Lord, Isha's here. Hello, Isha. Hello. Did you see? I was surprised to see you. I was very pleased to see you.
Well, it's not looking great, is it?
No, it's not. It's looking very disappointing, and I hope we didn't come into my conversation about the toilet roll there, but there we go. No, so Isha Gu, of course, well, you're as well known in Australia as you are in England, of course, aren't you? You're working for Fox.
Yep.
Fox over here, who are the live broadcaster, showing this. I mean, I'm just looking at all your stellar colleagues next door. They've got the heavy mob out, haven't they? All the Australians are there.
Yeah, Alan Gilchrist, Shane Watson, Michael Clark.
Yeah, it's such a shame, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, when he's Mark Taylor, my mate.
Yeah.
It's just such a shame to see, because when it was like back in the day, Richie Benno and Bill Laurie and Tony Gregg would all come, all here in these commentary boxes. You'd feel, this is it. This is England, Australia, Okay, they've all moved on, obviously, but this current mob, it's the same thing. It's just such a shame that something that should have been such a high point of the tournament is likely to be a bit of a fizzler.
Yeah. I got the sense that both sets of players weren't that interested in it being a shortened game.
Lots at stake.
Yeah, so much at stake, and I actually just tried to work everything out. So if they both take a point here, then they can both still get to 7 points. New Zealand can get to 7 points.
Right.
If they win all 3 of theirs and go beyond that. What Australia need is for New Zealand to win against England next
Australia
week.
need that.
Australia need that. England just have to win their remaining games, and then you might have 3 teams on 7 points.
So then net run rate.
And then net run rate.
Yeah, which at the moment doesn't suit Australia, does it? I mean, they're in quite a bad position for that.
But they've got Afghanistan and Ireland.
Yes.
And you would think up in Brisbane they would back themselves to win that game. The weather looks good up there. They'll back themselves to win that, and an opportunity to up the run rate if required. And then that last game in Adelaide.
Shaking of hands.
Yeah, that's it.
Shaking of hands. The umpires and the captains. It's not very well received this by the crowd, but the match is off. Consecutive matches washed out without so much as the toss of the coin, and it might have happened somewhere before, but certainly I wasn't there to witness it. 2 matches washed out, completely washed out, without even the coin being tossed. A really sad day. Both games had their intrigue. Ireland on the march. How might they have gone against Afghanistan, a team they play a lot? And with their confidence as it was and is, that is gone. And now England, Australia, it's just so
Yeah, Yeah, especially after the series we've just had. But that all goes out the window. England obviously had a great time in that, but you just didn't know which way it was going to go. You really didn't. If you had the potential to have the full 20 overs, I think it could have been an amazing game.
Yeah. You've got to go. You had to quit before you go to work now, do you, Isha? You're going to stare into a camera. No.
I was getting myself prepared for the toss. That's obviously not going to happen.
No, it's not. So the cover's going off, but there's no point. Sheet's going off, but well, the match is off, and both England and Australia will take a point. They'll go to 3 each. So therefore, New Zealand, Ireland, England, and Australia will all have 3 points. But there's still a long way to go in this. And I think the one thing that you can say is if either of these two teams had gone out today as a result of a 5-over thrash in the mud.
Yeah.
In talking long term for the tournament,
it's better for the tournament that they could both come away with a point. It's sad to say that, but I was looking at the group stages later on next week, and if Australia or England aren't in it, I mean, you think about the host nation not being within it, in with a shout to try and make the semi-finals.
We've been before with that. I mean, the South Africa World Cup, when they were knocked out famously in Durban and so on, it just loses all its impetus, doesn't it, when the home team goes. So both Australia and England remain. They will fight another day. I don't think you can blame anyone for today, I'm afraid. It has been unbelievably wet, and it really has. And it was always up against it. As we know, the Irish captain in his press conference said that he didn't think there'd be any play tonight. And that was hours ago. So I think you have to be realistic about it. I just feel sorry for the people who have come. And they've watched all the activity, and they would have got their hopes up. And we'd be sitting here thinking, oh, that looks encouraging, and that looks positive. But in the back of your mind all the time has been the fact that the umpires do have to think about potential injury to players, and that's part of it.
And you do. I mean, you think about the likes of Mark Wood, Mitch Stark, who've had their fair share of injuries, Josh Hazelwood as well, and both captains wouldn't have wanted to risk, even if they had one tonight, risk either of those bowlers going down, with such crucial matches to come. So, and
the point is also with the run-ups, which look great, don't they, from here, but and they'll be all right for a couple of overs, but once you get 14 stone blokes with size 11 boots running through it, that's the difference. I mean, the team fielding second with the run-ups like that would be actually quite seriously disadvantaged.
Absolutely, I think it's the run-ups that's the biggest problem, because you're right. I think the team that bowls first will be okay, but they'll bring up so much water for the team, for the set of bowlers that are bowling second. They'll have to run through those mud steps, and you can't guarantee it, because I think it is sand-based, which does help. Which doesn't really bring up the mud as much, but you just can't be sure, and especially if you've got a lot of water underneath your feet and you don't quite land properly with your spikes, your feet can go underneath you, and then that's trouble.
Think about Matthew Wade, by the way, who has COVID and had to be isolated from the rest of the team. So he's been sat in a
little room by
himself.
I think I spotted him wearing a mask as he came in. Right. Was he going to keep Wiggins in a mask?
Yeah, well, he was allowed to play.
Yes. Would you, if you were England, I mean, everyone signs up to, don't they? And I'm being slightly mischievous. But if you've got someone with COVID and he's standing up to the stumps of Zampa bowling, and he appeals...
I wouldn't want to get too close to him.
No. I wonder if you had to...
Probably a tactic, wouldn't it, from Australia? Let's get their boys ill. Get them out of the competition.
But given that you've got a very much a foot in the Aussie camp, Isha, are they worried about COVID going through there? I mean, that's two players now, and it's pretty tight-knit, isn't it? You're in dressing rooms and travelling together and everything. Is there much talk about that?
Yeah, I'm sure there would be. Yeah. Obviously the rules have changed, so if you do get COVID, there's still the chance of playing a match. You're not going to miss out in, a big game, but... two of them have had it in the last week now, so it will be a concern. I'm sure they'll be trying to manage that as best as possible, but with the rule change, it does mean that they can still play. I mean, if it was a case of if you get COVID, you're out of the game, then I think there'd be even more concern than there is at the moment.
Given you're nearly an Aussie.
Don't ever say that ever again.
Well, he's working here. But I'm going to read this cue in a minute. What's AEDT when it comes to time?
Eastern Daylight Time.
Daylight Time. I was trying to work out what the D was. Okay, I'm just looking ahead to what's coming up tomorrow. I was trying to work it out because it's difficult with the times. You're trying to work everything out, different states and different regions and everything else. Anyway, that's coming up because there is more cricket to come, of course. Where are you going next?
Brisbane.
Oh, we're going to Brisbane tomorrow.
Yep. Zimbabwe up there on Sunday, which should be an interesting game.
Actually, we're doing
Bangladesh.
that one. It's in the afternoon, isn't it?
Favourite team in the competition.
Yep.
You've got a big mate in the Zimbabwean side.
Yeah, Sikandar Raza, yeah.
Yes.
We played a lot of cricket together and spent a lot of time together, so I'm really happy for him, the way he's been playing over the last 6 months. He's done wonderful stuff with this this Zimbabwean side. Picked some very, very good bowlers. Yes. There's some top class bowlers they've got in their side.
I watched one tell the other day, they're very disciplined.
Very disciplined, very well drilled. You know, these bowlers have played franchise cricket. A couple of them have played franchise cricket at the highest level of franchise cricket and done really well. So they're no mugs with the ball. These boys can bowl. Blessings Muzrabani, he can get into it pretty much any international side as a bowler. He's one of the good ones out there.
Yes, and are they rating themselves? I mean, they suddenly think, "Ooh, hang on a minute, we could really shock a few here."
Well, I didn't speak to Sikandar this morning. I just sent him a message, congratulations, a message. But we are catching up at some point. Is it Brisbane? So yeah, we'll catch up in Brisbane. He did say we need to catch up, and I'll ask him. I'll find out exactly where they are.
Ravi's got a very good one. We used to call them address books. I don't think you've got them anymore, address books, have you? But he's
got a black book, has he?
He's got a lot of contacts.
Has he?
He's got a lot of contacts.
Who's the most famous person in your phone book right now?
Most famous?
Oh. He's got a network.
Does it have to be cricket?
No.
I can't even think, actually. Ooh, a lot of wickets in there.
He's got a real network, Isha. Honestly, he's on there all the time. He just taps into these teams. But that's what franchise cricket gives you, I guess, isn't it? I mean, it really does give you a lot of mates.
It does. You get to meet all sorts of players, and sometimes when you watch these guys, it's from afar, and you think, I wonder what type of person that is, and you sort of make up an idea of somebody, and then you actually go and meet them and play with them, and they're completely different to what you thought they would be. And I've been lucky enough to meet a lot of very, very, very good people in cricket. Very good cricketers, firstly. And then when you get to spend time with them, you go out to dinners and really get to know them. You ask them questions about how they go about their game and what makes them successful. And you learn from them. They may learn from you. And you stay in touch. You're always in a group with them anyway.
Yeah.
So the group that gets set up for that team, that franchise, it remains. Nobody really closes it down. Everybody stays in the group. So
like a WhatsApp group.
Yeah, WhatsApp group, and then there's people pinging messages on there and stuff. And if you do need to get in touch with somebody away from there, you can always go down the group and get their number and keep in touch. So yeah, I'll be lucky enough to meet a lot of the boys while I've been here.
Yeah. Does it take any of the heat out of contests like this?
Yeah, it does.
In a good way, or
I didn't like it. I preferred the unknown. I didn't like being friends.
Right.
When it came to cricket, I wanted that unknown, that mysterious kind of side.
So if you got a bit angry with someone, they could say, "Come off it, Ravi."
That was it. That was it. I needed that. I needed a bit of edge on it. And it kind of takes the edge off when you know him too well. But I think, again, it can work in your favour as well. It can take the edge off somebody who, for example, a Rashid Khan.
Right.
Who, if you don't know him at all, you may think a lot about Rashid Khan. He's a super bowler and this and that. But if you know him and you spent a lot of time with him and you really know his vulnerabilities as well, it can give you an edge over someone like him.
Yes.
Because he is very, very good. There's not many people who've dominated someone like that. He's one of the world's best. So when it comes to the world's best, it's quite a good thing to know them really well. It's because you know their vulnerabilities as well.
You see them in the showers. That's the big.
That's the biggest vulnerability.
There you go. There you go. Everyone's human at the end of the day.
Who in particular are you talking about?
I'm going to change the subject. But I think that's the point, is that you've seen everyone at their most vulnerable.
Yes.
Now, last thought from you, Sher. Who's going to win this? Any thoughts on what you've seen so far?
No, cannot call
Too
it.
open.
Too open, way too open. And that's what makes the next week fascinating. Anything could happen.
New Zealand, South Africa. You know what? I've got this thing about South
they could
Africa.
make it
He changes every day.
Zimbabwe
He changes every
on
day.
Sunday against Bangladesh. That's an interesting game for me.